Hello everybody, welcome to the AWS DevOps full course by Intellipaat. In 2023, Deloitte reported that almost 90% of companies are using the cloud for developing and managing their softwares. And there is no surprise that a big chunk of that workload is over the AWS cloud. Reason being, AWS is thought leader in cloud space and holds the major market share of 33%. Since the adoption of AWS is higher, AWS DevOps has been gaining more traction in the DevOps space. AWS itself has reported a 52% increase in job listings for AWS DevOps. That's why AWS DevOps is something you should learn if you're looking to become future-proof in the software development industry. Gone are the days when engineers used to have one specialized skills and worked it throughout their careers with blinders on. Now, the IT world is levitating more towards interdisciplinary work where the team who creates the product will also manage the deployment and other operations-related tasks. Companies like Netflix, Adobe, Walmart, Capital One have already adopted and benefited from AWS DevOps. And many companies, be it large-scale MNC or startup, are implementing DevOps into their development practice. That's why if you want to be future-proof, you must think about learning AWS DevOps. To help you exactly do that, we at Intellipaat have designed this free AWS DevOps course. This course has been taught by our top 1% industry experts associated with Amazon Web Services. And I am pretty confident that if you stay until the end of this video, you will understand AWS DevOps all the way from what it is to its practical adoption. Because towards the end of this course, we do have one practical AWS DevOps project for you, which will enable you to practically understand all the necessary tools and how to work with them. So guys, make sure to stay tuned with us till the end.
So what is AWS? AWS abbreviates as Amazon Web Services. AWS is a platform. It is a cloud providing platform which will help businesses or even individuals scale their business and also grow offering secure cloud service. They provide you computing power like virtual machines, and they provide you content delivery like CloudFront, CDNs. They provide you database storage and also normal storage. And they provide various services for analytics like Kinesis, and for simple storing data, you can use S3. Amazon Web Services is the #1 cloud provider in the world. After that comes Azure and GCP. So Amazon Web Services is also used by a lot of Fortune 500 companies, guys. So this is the basic information about AWS. And also AWS has 69 availability zones in 22 different regions across the world. So this means your website which you have in a particular country, for example, if you are in India and you're launching a website online, you want that website to be available for everyone in the world. So you can use AWS to get a global reach. So you can use AWS for that. So this is the basic information, guys. Now let us see what is DevOps. So AWS is a technology. So now let us see what is DevOps actually. So DevOps is not a technology. It is not a tool. DevOps is a methodology. DevOps is a way of operating a business. It is like Agile or a Scrum process. So basically it is a way of moving on with the business, creating a process which automates everything in your business, from coding till the deployment part. So basically DevOps is development operations put together, and you can see a simple infinity symbol over here. That it's not actually an infinity symbol. This is showing that it never ends. It automates itself. So first you plan, you create your project. After that, verification, that is testing. After that, it is packaged and it is sent to the operational floor where they release it to the world. So till here it will be within the development team. Then it will be released to the world. After that, you can do configurations, you can monitor your application. And again, once again, after monitoring, you'll be getting a lot of telemetry, which you can use to make the application better. So you again go to plan and create. So this is the process which keeps on happening. And you can see the motto over here, guys, that is DevOps is the union of people, process and products to enable continuous delivery of value to our end users. This particular statement was told by Donovan Brown, the Azure DevOps manager. So what this means is that DevOps is not a software service. So you don't use it just for software. You can use DevOps for anything, for delivering value. Value is the main motive, guys. It is not the software or any other product. You can provide value to your customers through any medium. But in our case, it is software. So what basically value means, you create a website and you have 4 different features. So 3 different features are constantly used by users, but that one feature is not getting used. So that feature is not delivering value to your end users. So how to deliver or how to make that feature more valuable and so that many end users are going to use it. So you either remove it or create a much better solution, and you can create a DevOps lifecycle. You can implement all of that over here. So you can see, you can monitor whether that particular feature is providing value. If it doesn't, you can just remove. For example, your website is having 10,000 customers every day, but only one of them is using a particular feature. That means it's not providing value, and also you are consuming a lot of resources to launch that particular feature in your website. So actually you don't need it, so you can remove it. So this is how DevOps works. It is basically a process. You can plan, create, and do all these steps, and you can automate it using DevOps tools. Moving on. So introduction to AWS DevOps. The first thing is, why DevOps on AWS? So you can use DevOps on any cloud service or even on your on-premise environment. So if you have a business running, you will have an on-premise environment. You might have an infrastructure for yourself. You can run it on it also. But why AWS DevOps? That we'll see moving on. So first, what is AWS DevOps? AWS DevOps is a set of developer tools which is provided by Amazon Web Services. This allows us to create a CI/CD pipeline from the scratch to the deployment stage, that is from the source. For example, a version control tool, maybe GitHub, maybe Azure repos, maybe AWS CodeCommit. So from the source stage till the deploy stage, we can do everything. It is the same as any DevOps tools, any DevOps lifecycle, or any DevOps process, but the tools are provided by AWS. And then, so why AWS for DevOps? What are going to be the benefits of using DevOps on AWS? So the first thing is fully managed services, guys. So we know why do we use a cloud service? Because we don't want to manage our tools or the VMs we have launched, the data we have stored. We don't want to manage it, or we don't have to install softwares on it. We don't have to do anything. It is all taken care by AWS. They take care of our infrastructure. So that is the first reason, guys, fully managed services. And then built for scale. Because AWS DevOps, you will be using it on existing services like EC2 or Lambda. So when you use on them, they already have a scaling feature within them. So obviously it is built for scale. So you can easily scale it up or down. And then programmable. You can write scripts, you can write shell scripts, you can create a program which you can implement inside AWS Developer Tools, which can actually impact your DevOps lifecycle. And then automation. So DevOps is mainly automation. So automation is one of the main reasons, and automation is available in everything like Azure DevOps, AWS DevOps, even in GCP. If you are implementing DevOps, automation will be available over there. Or if you manually use DevOps tools to create a DevOps lifecycle, even then automation is required. So DevOps main motive is automation. And then secure. Yes, AWS provides security and it is their first priority. And then pay as you go. Pay as you go model is that whatever you use, you only pay for that, nothing else. For example, you will launch a virtual machine using CodeDeploy. So that virtual machine is running for 2 hours and then it gets terminated. So you'll have to only pay for that 2 hours time. You don't have to pay for creating a virtual machine and running it. You don't have to pay a month's fee. You just have to pay the money for that particular 2 hours. So moving on. Now we've discussed what are the benefits of having DevOps on AWS. Now we'll see what are the tools provided by AWS. So these are the 4 tools provided by AWS, guys, and these are the most basic tools. There are still more tools for developing, but these are the 4 most basic tools for creating a DevOps lifecycle. So the first one is CodeCommit, and then CodeBuild, and then CodeDeploy and CodePipeline. So let us discuss them. Let's discuss these developer tools in detail now. So first let us discuss CodeCommit. So the name suggests that CodeCommit is a version control tool. It is like GitHub. So it is like Bitbucket. It is a version control tool, guys, but it is provided by AWS, and it also provides the same features GitHub provides or Bitbucket provides. You can do all of those stuff which is available over there, like committing, pull requests, merging branches. You can do all of it even using CodeCommit. You can also see over here CodeCommit allows 5 active users per month. So basically this is going to be your private repository. So it allows 5 users per month. If you have a startup and you only have 5 members, you can actually use CodeCommit and you won't be charged even a single rupee. And also you will be given 50 GB of space every month. So for example, our repositories maybe maximum of a size of 1 MB or 2 MB, but 50 GB, they provide 50 GB of space for the repository, guys. And also 10,000 Git requests per month, like pull or push requests. So this is CodeCommit.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat's DevOps certification course is in collaboration with NASSCOM's Future Skills Prime. With this collaboration, we bring you a DevOps course which is completely aligned to the job market. Intellipaat's DevOps course has been carefully curated by top DevOps experts from around the world and after going through hundreds of jobs description for DevOps jobs. With this course, we have already helped thousands of professionals in successful career transition. You can check out their testimonials on our Intellipaat's Achievers YouTube channel, for which the link is given in the description below. If you're looking for a job in the DevOps field and want to become a NASSCOM certified DevOps professional, do check out the course link mentioned in the description below.
Let's have a quick quiz question, guys. What AWS service is commonly used for automated code deployments, scaling application, and managing infrastructure as code in DevOps environment? Your options are A. Amazon RDS, option B. Amazon S3, option C. AWS Lambda, and last option is option D. AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Comment your answer in comment section. Now let's continue with the session.
It is a tool. It is like GitHub. It is like Bitbucket. It is the same kind of tool, but it is provided by AWS. And then AWS CodeBuild. So the name suggests that this tool is for building your application. So it provides a fully managed CI service, that is continuous integration service. It will compile your source code. You can run tests, you can run unit tests, and also provide software packages and store it in AWS S3 so that you can take out those packages and use it to deploy your application. So you can see here AWS CodeBuild, 100 build minutes. That is, if you run a build, it might run for 20 seconds. So like that, you can run any number of builds which come up to 100 build minutes. And also it runs using build.general 1.small compute type usage. So it runs with this, and for every month you get 100 build minutes free. Moving on, AWS CodeDeploy. This is one of the important service, guys. This service is used to deploy your application on any service you choose, like EC2 or Lambda. So it is an automated deployment tool which can deploy services like EC2, Lambda, Beanstalk. So even if you launch Beanstalk, it will be launched in an EC2 instance or Fargate, and also your on-premise setup. So these are the 4 benefits provided by AWS CodeDeploy. So first is automated deployments, and then minimized downtime, centralized control, and easy to adopt. So the first one is automated deployments. Is when you set it up, whenever there is a change in your repository, it automatically runs again, it builds your code again, and it gives it back. So that's what automated deployment means. It doesn't build and it stores, it actually deploys it again. Whenever there is a change in your code, it deploys and the change will be visible in your website. And then minimize downtime. So whenever the code is changed, it takes very less seconds. Your website will be down for maybe 1 to 2 seconds, and the change will be on your website, guys. So it minimizes the downtime. For example, when you do it manually, you will have to go to your system or your server where your website is launched, and you will have to change your code over there. When you do that, the downtime increases, but using CodeDeploy you can minimize that. So I'll show that in the demo, guys. And then centralized control, you can just use your command line interface of AWS or the management console, and you can control all of the operations happening in CodeDeploy, CodeCommit, and CodeBuild. And then easy to adopt, you can see works with any application, and same experience whether you are deploying it on EC2, AWS, or Lambda. That means whatever service you are deploying it to, maybe EC2 or Lambda or Fargate or Elastic Beanstalk, it provides you the same UI with the same experience. So it doesn't change, it is the same thing, but the deployment environment is different. So this is CodeDeploy, guys. And then finally, AWS CodePipeline. So we are going to use CodePipeline. We can use CodePipeline to create a CI/CD pipeline, guys. We can use all those services to do that. So first thing, it is a continuous delivery tool. That's why it is called a CI/CD pipeline. So it is also fully managed by AWS. As I told you, that is one of the benefit. And also you can automate your website, or you can automate your application which is running on CodeDeploy. So when you create a pipeline, whenever there's a change in code, it automatically pushes it to CodeDeploy and the change will be made. So that's how you use CodePipeline, guys. You can see over here, take it as an example pipeline. You have some website over in your source, that is your GitHub. So you build it and you test it using some programs. So after testing it, you can give any number of stages. This is staging. This means you will be seeing this deployed, but you will be seeing it in a IP address which only you might see. You might have given the security group like that. But in production, when it gets deployed in production, then you can view your website using the IP address or the DNS name from any other computer, guys. So this is how you use AWS CodePipeline. And then, so you can see over here, easy to integrate AWS CodePipeline with GitHub or with your own custom plugin. So you can integrate GitHub and CodePipeline easily. You can just click on connect to GitHub. There is an option for that. Or you can use your own custom plugin, like you would have created something in Bitbucket or any other version control tool. You can even use that. And then also it is pay for what you use. It's the same thing, guys. And also there is no upfront costs or long-term commitments. So it is basically free. Whatever services you launch using it, for example, the EC2 instance, so those are charged, not these services like pipeline or CodeDeploy. And also rapid delivery, which basically means whenever there is a change in your code and it is applied to the master branch, it will be applied to your website directly. And then configurable workflow. The workflow, you will have an UI. You can configure your workflow, how it should happen, which is the deployment server, which is the production server, which is the QA server, or you can mention builds or you can skip builds. So you can create a workflow for your own advantage and then get started fast. This basically means it's pretty easy. They have a lot of documentation, guys. You can just go on, create your own pipeline in no other than like half an hour. So it takes only that much time. And then it is easy to integrate. You can integrate AWS CodePipeline with any service. You can integrate with even Jenkins. So this is what they say, easy to integrate. So right now let us move on and let us create a CD pipeline using CodePipeline and CodeDeploy, guys. So let me open my GitHub repository. So let me close this. So this is the GitHub repository which I am going to use, guys. So you can see over here, index.html, abspec.yml, readme. This is the readme file. And then I have some scripts. So first I'll show the index.html file. So it is basically a hello world HTML. And then the next thing, the most important thing is abspec.yml. So this is a YAML file. So what it does is, you can see over here, the source is index.html. Destination is this. So this is where Apache 2 installs its index.html file, but we'll be deleting that file and launching our hello world application. So you can see here, before install, script/install dependencies and script/server, start server. So I'll show that what actually is there. I'm going to scripts, install dependencies. So in install dependencies, you can see, guys, it updates the instance. After updating the instance, it will install Apache 2. And also, guys, in your script, make sure to make sure to provide -y. This means yes, because you cannot go inside and click enter yes. So whenever you provide -yes, it will automatically take the command as yes and it will install the whole software. So whichever software needs a yes, provide a -y, guys. So if you don't provide, it will fail. And then it will remove the index.html file in this location. That will be created by Apache 2, and that will be the Ubuntu default page created by Apache 2, but I don't want that page to be launched. I want my page to be launched. That is my hello world page. So these are the stuff I wanted to show you. Appspec.yml, I'll show why we need that, where it will be used. So now let us start off with our management console. So the first thing we'll be doing is we'll have to create a code deploy, guys. So I'll go to code deploy first, and also I'll open So if I go to code deploy, basically you can see all of this over here. You can see source, repositories. You can actually create a repository, guys. To create a repository is very simple. You can just provide a name, for example, website. And then if you want, you can provide a description, or you can just create. That's it. But one more thing, you cannot use your repository from your root account. You will have to use it from your IAM user, which you can create, but you cannot use it from your root account, guys. So I'm not going to use this. I'm directly going to use from my GitHub. So this is it's actually pretty simple. And then build is for as I told you, it is for building your application. But right now I'm launching my website, so I'm going to use only code deploy and code pipeline, guys. So first thing we'll have to do is we'll have to create a code deploy application. So let me click on application. So I already have one. So this is what I tried. So create application. The first thing it asks is your application name. So I'm going to provide it as web server and Apache 2. So web server Apache 2, this is going to be my application name, and here compute platform. This is the most important thing, guys, because here you can see EC2, then AWS Lambda and ECS. I'm not going to use Lambda or ECS. I'm going to use my EC2 instance. So you'll have to click on EC2 and then create application. You'll have to select it over there because we'll be creating a deployment group which will be targeting the EC2 instance which we mention using tags. If you want to use Lambda, you can choose that also, but I want to use my EC2 instance, guys. So now we'll have to create a deployment group. But to create a deployment group, we will need a EC2 instance. But currently I don't have an EC2 instance, guys. So because we'll have to mention EC2 instance over here, I'll have to mention my tag over here. So before moving on with creating a deployment group, I'll create a EC2 instance. So first, what is deployment group? So deployment group is it directs or it targets to which instance should this particular code deploy application should deploy the application to. That is the website. So deployment group. So let me create the EC2 instance first. Let me teach you how to do that, and also how to install code deploy agent in that, because without installing code deploy agent in your instance, you will not be able to use code deploy for your instance, any instance which you use. So I'm going to use a Ubuntu server, guys. So I'm going to EC2. So I think you would have learned how to launch an instance from our other videos which are available in our channel. So currently I'll not be explaining each and every step in creating an instance, but I'll teach how to create an instance which will benefit in using code deploy. So the first thing you'll have to do is you'll have to go to EC2 dashboard and then go to instances, click on launch instance, guys. So you can see over here, choose AMI. AMI is Amazon Mission Images. Basically this means the ISO file. That is, you can see this is Amazon Linux, this is Red Hat, this is SUSE Linux, this is Ubuntu, and also you'll be having Microsoft Windows. So you can choose any of this and launch the server. But I want a Ubuntu server, guys. I'm going to launch my website in my Ubuntu server. So I'll be selecting this. And then these are instance types. You can choose any instance, but I'm going to go with free tier eligible instance, t2.micro, which doesn't cost me any money up till 750 hours every month. So you can use this particular instance, you can run this instance for 750 hours every month. So I'm going to go with t2.micro. Next. And here number of instance, I just need one instance. And then one more thing, guys. This is the most important thing. You will have to include a IAM role. So why an IAM role? Because the code deploy agent should access your EC2 instance, and also the EC2 instance should be connected to your code deploy agent. So to give a connection between these two AWS services, you will have to attach an IAM role. I already have created an IAM role, guys. So I'm just going to go to EC2 code deploy. If you don't have one, you can just go over here. I'll tell the basic how to create a role. So role, create role. You will have to choose the service which you are creating the IAM role for. So EC2, next permissions. And here you will have to provide code deploy. So you can see Amazon EC2 role for code deploy. You can just choose this, and next you can provide a name over here and create the role, guys. So I already have created a role. So you can see over here EC2. So I already have created a role using that particular permission. So I have created, if you want you can create it. If you already have, you don't need to. So I have it, I chose the IAM.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat offers an AWS DevOps certification course. With this program, you'll get trained in AWS services, CI/CD pipelines, infrastructure as code, containerization with Docker and Kubernetes, monitoring with CloudWatch, and much more, all through real-world projects and case studies. The course is taught by certified trainers and industry leaders who guide you with hands-on labs and practical assignments, ensuring you're fully job-ready. With this program, Intellipaat has already helped thousands of learners transition into high-paying DevOps roles, and you can check out their success stories on our Achievers channel. Link is given in the description below. So if you're looking to build a strong career in AWS DevOps, this course can be your perfect launchpad. Visit the course page link in the description below and take the first step towards becoming a certified AWS DevOps engineer.
And then also I'll have to enter user data. So what does user data mean? So basically user data is the commands or scripts which you want to run while the instance is being created. Once the instance gets created, these commands and these scripts will be automatically run. So we don't need to open the instance and run all of these. This will be automatically run if you enter the user data over here. So I have the user data over here, guys. You can see over here, basically it will update my instance. It will install Ruby. Actually Ruby is required for code deploy. And then if you want, you can install wget, or wget is already available in your EC2 instances. And then I'm going to this location, and there I'm going to install my code deploy. After installing that, I'm just modifying my permissions, and after that I'm installing code deploy, which got downloaded. After it gets downloaded, now I'm starting code deploy, guys. After installing code deploy, I'm going to start the code deploy service. Only if it is started, then I can connect my EC2 instance and code deploy. So I'll copy these and enter it in code deploy, guys. That's it. So this is what we have to enter, and you can see over here it asks for, I've given -y. So basically -y means yes. So when you install Ruby, it basically asks yes. So providing -y doesn't affect that. It will provide yes automatically. So we've done all of the required things over here. And then adding storage, 8 GB is more than enough. And then you'll have to add a tag, guys. So to add a tag, hit on add tag. Then I want to, the key is going to be name, and my value is going to be web server. So this is going to be my value. Why I am creating this tag? Because I'm going to use this tag to, so I'll have to enter this tag over here so that this code deploy identifies this particular instance, guys. So moving on, next, configuring security group. So already SSH is available, but I actually don't need to SSH into my instance. But right now, I'm going to allow an HTTP rule, because I need HTTP Because I'm launching a website, guys. My website needs HTTP. Without HTTP, my website will not be able to be seen using a URL, and also it can be seen from any IP address across the world. If they are using my IP address from any browser from anywhere in the world and through internet, they can see my website, guys. So reviewing and launching it. This is just for making sure if everything is right. So I'm good with it. And you'll have to choose the key pair, guys. If you already have a key pair, you can just choose the existing key pair and move on and click on launch instances. And now your instance has been launched. So you can just go to view instance. You can see my instance is being created right now. It's in pending state. So only if this is running. So right now I think I can see it over here. So right now just I'll go back. And now let me start creating this deployment group. So my instance, let it get created. So my deployment group name is going to be web server deploy. So web server deploy 1. And one more thing, you'll have to enter a service role, guys. This service role allows this code deploy to connect with EC2 and other services like S3 or whichever you mention. So I have this service role. You can also create a service role for code deploy. So I showed you how to create a service role for EC2. So this shows how to create a service role for code deploy, guys. And then let it be in place, and then environment configuration. In environment configuration, you will have to mention whether you're going to connect your auto scaling group or your individual EC2 instances or your on-premise instances. I'm going to connect my EC2 instance, which is running right now. It is initializing, guys. So right now, if I just hit name, and you can see many values. My value was capital W web and capital S server. So I'm going to choose that. So now you can see there is one matching instance. If I click here for details, you can see over here, and my instance is showing. So this is the instance and it is showing, so that I have connected this code deployed group. So it is connected with this particular instance, guys. My deployment group targets to that instance. So now I'm good to go. And here you can see deployment settings, deployment configuration. So one at a time, half at a time, all at once. If you're having a lot of instances running, guys, sorry. If you have a lot of instances running, guys, you can provide half at a time. And after, for example, you have 10 instances, first 5 instances will run. After that, the next 5 instances will start. So if you provide one at a time, if you have 10 instances, first the first instance will get the website, and then the next, and then the next. So it will go one by one. After that, if you give all at once, all of the instances which you have provided, which you have mentioned, will get the website at the same time. So right now I have only one instance, so it doesn't matter if I choose any of these. I'm going to go with all at once. And I'm not using any load balancing, so I'm going to cancel that. And I'm creating my deployment group. So you can see additional settings. Actually, I don't have any alarms or triggers. So I'm just going to go with creating my deployment group. So here you can see I have created my deployment group, and also there is an edit option. Sorry guys. So you can edit it or delete it, or you can create a deployment from here. But I'm not going to create a deployment from here, guys. I'm going to create a pipeline which will do that for me automatically. So if I create a deployment from here, every time I'll have to come to code deploy and click on create deployment. I'll have to click on that button, which will create a new deployment every time I change my GitHub code or code in any repository, guys. So instead of doing that, I can just create a pipeline which will do that automatically for me. So right now we've created an application and it has a deployment group, guys. So we are good with that. We've learned how to create a code deploy application and a deployment group, and also how to connect a EC2 instance with code deploy. So you can
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat offers an AWS DevOps certification course. With this program, you'll get trained in AWS services, CI/CD pipelines, infrastructure as code, containerization with Docker and Kubernetes, monitoring with CloudWatch, and much more, all through real-world projects and case studies. The course is taught by certified trainers and industry leaders who guide you with hands-on labs and practical assignments, ensuring you're fully job-ready. With this program, Intellipaat has already helped thousands of learners transition into high-paying DevOps roles, and you can check out their success stories on our Achievers channel. Link is given in the description below. So if you're looking to build a strong career in AWS DevOps, this course can be your perfect launchpad. Visit the course page link in the description below and take the first step towards becoming a certified AWS DevOps engineer.
Let's have a quick quiz question, guys. What is the primary goal of deployment phase in DevOps lifecycle? Your options are A. Code development, B. Code testing, C. Delivering software to production, and option D. Code review. Comment your answers in the comment section below. Now, let's continue with the session.
See, it's still initializing because we've run some commands, so those commands will be running inside. Normally it doesn't take this much time, so right now it's running, so that's okay, guys. So next, code pipeline. So you only using code pipeline, we're going to connect our GitHub and CodeDeploy. So whenever there is a change in GitHub, so it will be available in our instance. So right now I already created a pipeline which succeeded, and right now I'm going to create a new pipeline for my new CodeDeploy application. So first thing, I'll have to provide a name. I'm going to provide web server pipe. So it will create a role. So it needs a role, it needs a service role, and it will create it automatically. We don't need to create it again and again. And then advanced settings, just click on default location and default AWS management key. Basically, default location means the artifacts, that is the data which will be stored while we run this. That data will be stored in this bucket. So the data will be stored in code line US East 1 and this number. So it will be stored in this S3 bucket, guys. So that is default location. If you have any other bucket where you want to store your artifacts, you can provide it in custom location. And then next, now you'll have to choose your source provider. My source provider is GitHub. So I'm choosing GitHub. And the first thing it asks is connect to GitHub. So I'll have to click on it. It takes me and it connected with my GitHub account because I have already logged in. And then repository, I'll have to choose the repository which I have to deploy. So my website is in this repository, which is also called website. So I'm just going to click on it. And branch, I have only one branch, that is master. And then next. So I don't need a build, guys. Actually, this is a website. There is nothing to be built. It is a HTML page. There is nothing to be built. So I don't need to worry about building. So I'm going to skip build stage. So now you will have to deploy. You will have to click on a deploy provider. So you can see over here, there are various deployment options. You can choose Amazon S3 and launch this website as a static website. You can choose Amazon ECS. You can choose Alexa skill sets. You can choose OpsWorks, even Elastic Beanstalk, and then cloud formations also. But right now, as we are doing code deploy and code pipeline, I'm going to choose code deploy because I already have a code deploy application. So I'm clicking on it. You will have to choose the region where we created. My code deploy is in North Virginia, so I'm good to go. If I click on this, it should show all of the code deploy applications available in the region. You can see over here, web server Apache and a web server Apache 2. So mine is web server Apache 2. I'll have to choose that. And then deployment group, I have only one deployment group. I'm choosing it and moving on. Next. So this is again same thing. Basic stuff. It asks you to review it. You can review it if you want, or you can just move on. So right now, let me see my instance is running. So currently, if I see, so there is nothing available, guys. So let me run this pipeline. So let me create this pipeline. So if I create this pipeline, what do you expect will be available? So there will be an UI with two things, that is the source stage and the deploy stage. So congratulations, the pipeline web server pipe has been created. So you can see source. My source is GitHub and it is in progress. Once it gets succeeded, then it will move on to deploy stage. And you can see over here, you can edit this. You can add more stages, that is more source over here. You can add more deployment stages over here, but I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to, because I have already created. So right now GitHub has been succeeded. My code has been properly taken. So it took merge branch master from this particular GitHub repository. So right now CodeDeploy is running, guys. So I'll go to details. Let us check whether this succeeds or not. Only if this gets succeeded, then my website will be available. So you can see, oh, my CodeDeploy got succeeded. So right now if I go over here, you can see all the events happened and also whether it is succeeded or not. If any of this was not succeeded, for example, if this gets failed, so you will see the error code over here, and if you click on that error code, it will take you to a log page which will show what error is available in your code. So you can use that to debug your application. So you can see over here, succeeded, before install succeeded. So before install took 13 seconds. Why? Because in my app.spec.yaml file, you can see before install will install dependencies, and also it will start the server. So as it already showed you in my scripts, so install dependencies will update my application once again, my instance once again. It will install Apache 2. It will also remove the HTML page, index.html page within this location, because I want to launch my application, guys. So then start server will start my Apache 2 service. So only if the Apache 2 service is started, then I'll be able to see my website. So right now, as my pipeline is succeeded, I should see my website, guys. If I go over here, if I choose my IP or my DNS name, if I go over here and hit. So right now you can see hello world to Intellipaat. This is the website which is currently running, guys. So I'll go and show over here index.html, and you can see hello world to Intellipaat. So right now, as I told you, this pipeline should automatically execute whenever there is a change in the master branch. So because that is what we mentioned, whenever there is a change in the master branch in this repository, this pipeline should automatically run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change few values over here. So I'm going to just change to hello world, and then I'm going to commit my changes to master branch. So once I commit my changes, if I go over here, it should automatically start. So it is currently in progress because I have changed my code. After some time, you can see there will be a commit ID, the commit, which commit it took will be present over here. Once it succeeds, that change will be implemented in my CodeDeploy agent. That is my EC2 instance automatically, guys. You can see source update index.html because this is my latest commit. This is the latest commit ID which it took. So you can see it's running, guys. So right now, hello world to Intellipaat. So now it changed to hello world. So this gets succeeded and this changed to hello world, and you saw there was no downtime over here. So this is why you use a DevOps pipeline. This is how you create a pipeline using CodeDeploy and your version control tool. So whenever there is a change happening in your version control tool, whenever there is a change happening here, so whenever there is a change happening in your version control tool, that is this change when it is committed in the master branch, once it is committed in the master branch, this pipeline will automatically detect the change happened in your GitHub. It will take the latest commit made and it will run it once again. Once it succeeded, once it is properly run, then it provides the code to CodeDeploy. So CodeDeploy right now will download the contents of this particular GitHub repository. It will store in some location. We do not know where exactly it stores it. It stores it in some location. It will copy the index.html file into /var/www/html. So only if the index.html is available in that particular location, it will be taken by Apache 2 server, guys. So you can see this is how you create a code pipeline and using CodeDeploy and GitHub. So we've learned how to do this. So right now, let me recap all of the stuff we learned in this session, guys. And after that, we'll end this session. So the first thing, I'll go to the slides once again. I'll come from the beginning. I'll just go quick. So first thing, what is AWS? It is a cloud provider. It's the #1 cloud provider in the world. So many Fortune 500 companies are using it, and it provides you a lot of services with a lot of benefits. And also you have a pay-as-you-go method. That is, you'll only have to pay for the time you have consumed those services. And then what is DevOps? DevOps is a methodology. It is a union of people, process, and products to enable continuous delivery of value to our end users. So it is basically providing value continuously to our end users without reducing the downtime and also increasing the deployment speeds. And then introduction to AWS DevOps. So basically it is using DevOps principles on AWS, and there are few developer tools which is used to do that. And then why AWS for DevOps? Because fully managed services, you can scale easily, programmable, and then automation. You can automate your entire company's process, and then it is secure. And also, as I said already, it is pay as you go. And then we saw all of these 4 services: CodeCommit, CodeBuild, CodeDeploy, and CodePipeline. And then so we saw these 2 tools, and here we learned how to create a CodeDeploy application and also how to create a CodeDeploy deployment group. So using CodeDeploy, we created a deployment group which basically targets to a particular instance. And then CodePipeline. So we used the version control tool GitHub and also CodeDeploy to create a pipeline so that whenever there is a change made in my GitHub, so whenever there is change made there, it will send that changed code to CodeDeploy, so that change will be available in my instance also, so that it will reduce downtime and the change will be automatically made in my website. So right now you can see over here. So this is my this also I explained rapid delivery. You can configure your workflows. It is very easy to start, and also you can integrate it with many of those version control tools or other tools like Jenkins, and also you can connect it with Elastic Beanstalk or EC2 or S3. So you can connect it with other AWS services also. And then finally, we learned how to create a CI/CD pipeline. And so this is what we learned. We created an instance, we created a deployment group, and after that, we created a code pipeline using the source from my GitHub repository and the deploy as my CodeDeploy application, which has a deployment group which targets to this instance, guys. So after that, when we ran everything, everything ran successfully. So my website got changed whenever I changed my code in my GitHub repository also. So this is how you create a CI/CD pipeline, guys.
So CodeCommit, what it is a fully managed source control service that enables companies to host secure and highly scalable private Git repositories, correct? Right. So it's a fully managed source control service that enables companies to host secure and highly scalable private Git repository. So it is like a repository, private Git repository, wherein you can put your code and then you can make changes to it. So just like GitHub, which is again a repository, you have CodeCommit as well, which is offering from AWS. So Git is an industry standard open source distributed source control system. Right, that is nothing but the central repository for all your code, binaries, images, and libraries. As I said, whenever you make any change in that code, it would be auto-committed, and then it would be deployed automatically, that code in your production environment or in your development environment as well. So it would be automatically compiled and then tested, released. All those things will happen with CI/CD pipeline, right? So then it tracks and manages code changes, maintains version history for the same, okay, manages updates from multiple sources, okay, and so I mean multiple people can work on that code, and it enables collaboration. That's why, right? Okay. So that's there. And it maintains your version history as well. Correct? So like you can have different versions of your code, right? You can create different branches of the code in CodeCommit and you can go about it, right? So that's what is written here. So users create a copy known as the branch of the master repository, which they can update independently without impacting other users. Like let's say it's not always you guys who is working on a project in your organization. There can be multiple users who are working on the same project, same modules at all also sometimes. So you can have you can be working on different modules of the same project, and then you can put your different modules in the form of different codes in different branches on GitHub, or let's say CodeCommit, and then finally you can just merge all those branches in a master branch, and then you can execute your code that way, right? So if there is any change that you are doing it in your branch, okay, of code, that will not affect the other user's branch of code. And then finally, when all is good, you can put it in the master branch. Okay. So save code changes which are ready to be applied to a repository are known as commit. Okay. You can commit them then. When the updated code located in a branch is ready to be added to the master repository, the branch is then merged into the master repository, right? So then it is merged to the master repository. So AWS CodeCommit provides all the functionalities of Git, and you can use Git on your local machine to interact with your CodeCommit repository as well, correct? So AWS CodeCommit provides all the functionalities of Git, and you can use the Git on your local machine to interact with your CodeCommit repository. Okay. So your data is encrypted in transit and at rest as well, right? So it is encrypted in transit and at rest as well in CodeCommit, right? While it is saved or while it is being moved from one place to another place. So it is encrypted in transit and at rest. Instead of using GitHub, instead of using CodeCommit, you can also use GitHub as well, right? Like in one of the corporate trainings that I had taken with Vodafone UK, I was showing them this lab to them, the CI/CD pipeline lab. Okay, and then what happened is that they were unable to do it because in their company environment, the like in the in their company environment when they were using the CodeCommit repository. So in IAM actually through that consultancy that had given that them that that particular sandbox environment, the IAM permissions were not getting updated for the CodeCommit. So then we did it. Then for them to do it, I just did it with GitHub, right? And we did it then through GitHub. Okay. So GitHub is a repository just like CodeCommit, correct? So you can put your code, you can put your data out there, Karan, right? Like you can put it in CodeCommit, and you can create multiple branches of your data. Like different developers can work on different modules and can store their different data in their particular branches. And then when they are all good, so then all those branches data, those modules can be merged to the master branch. Okay. So CodeDeploy, I already told you, it's an automated deployment service which allows you to deploy your application code automatically to EC2 instances, on-premise system, Lambda functions, Beanstalk on container services also. Correct. It allows you to quickly release new features, avoids downtime during application deployments, and avoid the risk associated with the manual process, correct? So because here the things would be done in an automated fashion. Whenever any new thing is updated in your GitHub, in your CodeCommit, that would be deployed onto your EC2 instances or your container instances or your Beanstalk or your Lambda functions automatically by CodeDeploy. So it automatically scales with your infrastructure and integrates with various CI/CD tools. So how this CodeDeploy will automatically bring in the code from your repository onto the EC2 instance, let's say, or container instance, or Beanstalk or Lambda function, how it brings in automatically, and how it brings in the changes also that are done to the CodeCommit repository automatically onto your EC2 instances or container instances or wherever it can deploy, how it brings them automatically, guys. So because it is integrated with what? If you integrate it with CI/CD tools, with the IAM roles, yeah, so it can do it for you, right? So automatically scales with your infrastructure and integrates with various CI/CD tools, example, Jenkins, GitHub, Atlassian AWS CodePipeline, as well as configuration management tools like Ansible, Puppet, Chef. So you can integrate it with your what you call it as the repository, that is like GitHub or CodeCommit, correct? Plus you can use it with Jenkins, Atlassian, CodePipeline, as well as configuration management tools like Ansible, Puppet, and Chef. And yes, so it has the capability of automatically bringing in your code from your repository onto your EC2 instance or container instances, wherever it wants to deploy the code, right? And yes, two deployment approaches are available in this. That is in-place deployment and blue-green deployment, guys. So when I will be showing you this thing in lab tomorrow, wherein when we will be using code deploy in lab tomorrow, so you will see what? You will see these two types of deployment approaches, that is in-place deployment and blue-green deployment, right, guys? So now, what is in place and blue-green deployment? Okay. So there are two types of deployment, that is the in-place deployment and the blue-green deployment. Now, what happens in in-place deployment? So the application is stopped on each instance and the latest revision is installed. Let's say your instances on which the code was deployed, they are running the version 1.0 of the code. Okay. So initially you have deployed version 1.0 of the code on your instances. So initially, let's say CodeDeploy has deployed version 1.0 code on the instances. Correct, guys? Okay. So then if you want to deploy version 2.0 now, which version? Version 2.0. So how would you deploy it? What happens here is, let's say initially CodeDeploy has deployed the code on these three EC2 instances, but that is the version 1.0 of the code. And then let's say in the code commit in the repository, the version has changed. Another version of the code has came. That is, some changes are made to the code and you have version 2.0. Now, if version 2.0 code is to be deployed on these EC2 instances again, so how it would be deployed? So it would be deployed in case of in-place deployment, how it would go? The application is stopped on each instance and the latest revision is installed. So if there are three instances, so on the first instance would be stopped first, the application would be stopped there, and then version 2.0 will be installed on that first instance, and then it would be started again. So there'll be a downtime, guys, correct? Right? And then another instance again will be stopped. And so again, application will stop on another instance, and then version 2.0 will be installed on it, and it would bring it would then be made online, correct? And then again on third instance, it would be brought down and then version 2.0 would be installed, and then it will be brought online, correct? So the application is stopped on each instance and the latest version is then installed, and the instance is out of service during this time while the new version is getting installed, and your capacity will be reduced, guys. So of course, it's like, let's say if all the three instances are running your Zomato web application, right? The Zomato website, right? On all the three instances, let's say Zomato website is running. So this Zomato website, guys, its complete business depends on what? On its website. Do you all agree with me? Do you all agree with me? So Zomato website's complete business depends on its website, correct? Right? So fine. So all these businesses whose business is completely dependent on their website, let's say Zomato or Flipkart, Swiggy, whatever, right? So they cannot afford to have their website going down, correct? So for that matter, they can be running their website application on multiple instances for high availability, correct? So let's say if the Zomato website is running on these three instances, and then there is some change in the Zomato's website code, they are upgrading their website, and then the new version is being deployed on the first instance. So at that time, that first instance will go out of service. But your Zomato website will not go down because it is also running on other EC2 instances, correct? But then, of course, your capacity will be reduced. So let's say if some user's request was going to instance 1, some to instance 2, some to instance 3. So then the user's request that was going to instance 1, so then that will go to the second server and the user will get the response from the second server for the Zomato website. So user will not come to know that, okay, the Zomato website's one instance has gone down, Okay, because he will see the response to his request, because his request will then go to another instance which is running. But then guys, the capacity will be reduced. He may find a lag in the website. Okay, the website may run slow because when out of 3 instances, 1 is down. So your website will be running only with 2 instances rather than 3. Okay, so the instance is out of service. During this time, your capacity will be reduced. So it would be done 1 instance at a time so that the complete website doesn't goes down. And if the instances are behind a load balancer, you can configure the load balancer to stop sending requests to the instances which are being upgraded. As I said, so let's say if Zomato website is running on these 3 instances and version 2.0 code is being installed on one of the instance and that is down during that time. So this load balancer will not send the user traffic to that instance during that time. And all the traffic of the user that was intended for that instance will also go to another 2 instances. And the user will not see the website as down. Okay, and then when that version is installed, that instance will come online, and then other instance will go through version upgrade, and that will go offline, and then that instance, whatever the user traffic was going, that will now be redirected to other instances. Correct. So that is how it goes, guys, and that is how your website will always be running. Okay, but here the capacity will be reduced when you are having in-place deployment, when you are going to deploy the new versions on the instances, no doubt 1 at a time, but then the capacity will be reduced, right, guys? Okay, so that's how it goes. So in-place deployment is also known as rolling updates because 1 at a time the instance goes through the changes, right? And it can only be used for EC2 and on-premises systems. It is not supported for Lambda, okay? And if you need to roll back your changes, the previous version of the application will need to be redeployed. So now if you feel like that version 2.0 is not a good idea, you want to go back to version 1.0. So then if you want to roll back the changes on the instances, so the previous version of the application that is 1.0 will need to be redeployed on your instances. So again, those instances, this version 2.0 instance will go offline. Version 1.0 will again be installed on it, redeployed on it, and then again it will come online. Okay, so it is like if you want to go back to a previous version also, then also you'll have to take down the instance. You'll have to redeploy that application on your instance again. Fine. So that is what is in-place deployment, guys. And you have a load balancer on top of that. And those 3 servers are running an application. Let's say these 3 servers are running your Zomato website. And they are running the version 1.0 of Zomato website. Now, if you create a new version of Zomato website, okay. So of course you want to make that new version to run on your servers, correct? You want that 1.0 version to be replaced by 2.0 version. Yes or no? Yes, of course. So now what you can do is, you can deploy 2.0 version and remove the 1.0 version. But then the point is that if you deploy version 2.0 on all the servers, all these 3 servers at a time, so you'll have to bring out those 3 servers offline, and then you will put version 2.0 and remove version 1.0. So then your Zomato website will be down at that time, correct? You don't want that because because that website business is purely dependent on the website, correct? So then what you can do is, you don't want downtime, correct? So then what you can do is you can install version 2.0 of the code on 1 server at a time. Instead of 3 servers at a time, you can do it on 1 server at a time. So let's say if you do it on the first server, so that you will bring it down, bring it offline. You will put version 2.0 in it, and then you will bring it online. And then while that first server was down, all the user traffic that was going to that first server that wanted to use the Zomato website, that will not go to the first server, but then it will be redirected to the other 2 servers by the load balancer, correct? So the load balancer will balance the traffic on the other 2 servers then. So of course, the capacity will be reduced, but the website will not go down. And then when that version 2.0 would be installed on that first server, and when it will come online, then that user's traffic will go to that server as well. But then the second server can go down then, and then version 2.0 will be installed on that. And that users traffic that was going to second server will not go to the second server, and instead will go to the first or the third server. And in the same manner, the second server will then come online, and then with version 2.0, and then the third server will go offline, and version 2.0 will be installed on that, then it will come online this way. So this happens in-place deployment. The overall capacity will be reduced during that time while the newer versions are getting installed on the servers. But then it is like the entire website will not go down. All the servers will not go down together, and the users will always see their website running, right? What happens with a blue-green deployment? So in a blue-green deployment, what happens is that new instances are provisioned and the latest version is installed on the new instances. So blue represents the active deployment, green is the new release. So what happens is these blue instances are the active instances with version 1.0, and the load balancer is sending all the user traffic to these blue instances only. What about these green instances, guys? So when version 2.0 is available, so it will not be installed on these 3 blue instances one at a time, like used to happen in-place deployment. So all these 3 instances, blue instances, will be up and running, and it will not happen like one instance will be taken down and the version would be installed there, version 2.0, and then it will come online. So it is not that the capacity will be reduced during version 2.0 deployment, or it will not be like the version 2.0 will not be installed on these 3 instances one at a time. No, not like that. It will not happen like that. But what will happen is for version 2.0, 3 new instances will be created. What will happen? 3 new instances will be created that are shown with this green. Then the new version will be installed on those 3 new instances. And they are anyways, the user traffic is not being sent to those 3 instances. The user traffic, all the user traffic is sent to the blue instances only. And these green instances will contain the new version. New version will be installed on these 3 new instances. And then the traffic will not be sent to these green instances by the load balancer, but then the traffic will only be sent to the blue instances, the 3 instances. And then when these 3 new instances are ready with version 2.0, then what will happen is that this older version of the instances, the 3 blue instances, will be taken off, and load balancer will start forwarding the traffic to the newer version of the instances, 3 instances. So here there will be 0 downtime. Why? Because as soon as these 3 instances are taken off, these new 3 instances are available with your load balancer. So only when these new 3 instances are available with the load balancer, only when the load balancer can forward the traffic, users traffic to these 3 new instances, then only the older 3 instances will be taken off. Yeah, so it's create and delete. Correct, Dinesh. So see, it's written here. Blue, green deployment, new instances are provisioned, and the latest revision is installed on the new instances. So blue represents the active deployment. Green is the new release. The new instances are registered with an elastic load balancer. You know that, right? And then traffic is then routed to the new instances, and the original instances are eventually terminated. So once the user's traffic start going to new instances, then eventually the older instances are terminated. So this is how your blue-green deployment works, guys. So the advantages of blue-green deployment are that the new instances can be created ahead of time. They can be created ahead of time, and the code released to production by simply switching all traffic to the new servers. Okay, so the new instances, the green instances, you can create them ahead of time, beforehand itself, and then the code released to production by simply, so then the code will be released to production by simply switching all the traffic to the new servers, by simply switching all the users traffic that was going to the blue instances to the green instances then, correct? To the newer instances then, correct? So switching all the users traffic that was going to these 3 instances to the other 3 instances then. And switching back to the original environment is faster and more reliable. Okay, so switching back to the original environment is faster and more reliable. Okay. And is just a case of routing the traffic back to the original servers as long as you haven't already terminated them. So see, in case of in-place deployment, if you wanted to go back to the previous version, then you would have had to redeploy the previous version again on those servers. You would take down those servers again, version 2.0 server, and you would redeploy version 1.0 again on that server, and you would bring it online again. But here, if you want to go back to the previous version, it's just a matter of switching the user traffic from version 2.0 instances to version 1.0 instances. That simple it is, provided if you have not terminated the older instances, right? Provided if the older instances are not terminated. So the new instances are registered with an elastic load balancer. Traffic is then routed to the new instances and the original instances are eventually terminated. But then switching back to original environment is faster here if you want to go back to the older environment. So it is faster and more reliable as is it is just a case of routing the traffic back to the original servers. Okay. As long as you have not already terminated them, guys, right? So that is what is a blue-green deployment for you is, right? Okay. So that is what is blue-green deployment is for you guys, right? Is that clear to everybody? Yeah, I'll just take up these questions, but others for whom it is clear, they can just put up a yes. And for whom it's not clear, let me know what is not clear to you guys. You can put it in the chat window. In production, when this blue-green scenario will be used? It's quite often used, right? In production, of course, it's very often used because see, when you want zero downtime, this is when it would be used, correct? And in production, you want minimal or zero downtime. So this is often used, Subramaniam. Okay. Let's say Zomato website itself, if they are bringing new features to their website. So let those new features come in a new version on new instances. And then once the new instances are ready, put it behind the load balancer, start sending user traffic on those new instances, and then delete the older instances. Okay. It's create and delete, correct. In this, I hope that is clear to you, Subramaniam. Then is this a blue-green deployment is not cost effective? If you will ask me from cost perspective, so of course, in-place deployment is cost effective than blue-green deployment because here, guys, you are creating new servers, correct? So, I mean, new servers will charge you more, correct? So, in-place deployment is, of course, cost-friendly affair, but then it is cost-effective. But then this is more efficient, isn't it? Blue-green deployment. It will have less downtime, zero downtime, I would say. So this is not cost-effective if you'll compare it with in-place deployment. So in first place, also for the user still can access the site, but instead of 3 instances, 2 instances will be there. Only load is more, but downtime for the user is 0 only. Yeah, downtime is 0. But then downtime, okay, in-place deployment, downtime again is 0, but your capacity is reduced. And when your capacity is reduced, so the users will feel the lag, right? Isn't it? So the performance can deteriorate for the user for some time, but here that will not happen, right, Ranjit? Blue-green is better than in-place. Of course, it is better if you'll talk about the performance. But if you'll talk about from the cost perspective, then in-place is better. Here we can grant load to the green gradually, right? Yeah, you can grant gradually or completely together, like all the traffic, then you can start sending to the green one. It is more effective than Beanstalk. Now, see, you cannot compare it with Beanstalk directly, Bhuvan, because see, in Beanstalk, again, you had multiple options, correct? And then that is platform as a service component, right? You don't manage the servers there. Okay. Yeah. So code deploy terminology, guys. So deployment group, you all know, it is a set of EC2 instances or Lambda functions to which a new version of the software is to be deployed, right? So that forms your deployment group. So, and what is the terminology like deployment? So deployment group is nothing but a set of EC2 instances or Lambda functions to which a new version of the software is to be deployed. And what is deployment? So the process and components used to apply a new version, correct? And deployment configuration is nothing but a set of deployment rules as well as success failure conditions used during a deployment, correct? App spec file defines the deployment actions you want AWS CodeDeploy to execute, right? So app spec file will define the deployment actions you want AWS CodeDeploy to execute, okay? Then revision is everything needed to deploy the new version. That is app spec file, application files, executables, configuration files. Okay. An application, you can take this terminology as unique identifier for the application you want to deploy. To ensure the correct combination of revision, deployment configuration, and deployment group are referenced during a deployment. Okay, so that's there. Fine. And the exam tips can be like, guys, AWS CodeDeploy is a fully managed automated deployment service and can be used as a part of continuous delivery or continuous deployment process, right? Okay, so CodeDeploy is fully managed. It's a managed service. It's a PaaS component, fully managed automated deployment service, and can be used as part of a continuous delivery or continuous deployment process. So remember the different types of deployment approach: in place or rolling update, as I already explained you. So in this, you stop the application on each host and deploy the latest code out there. So EC2 and on-premises systems only it can work with. To roll back, you must redeploy the previous version of the application on those instances. And blue-green is like new instances are provisioned and the new application is deployed to these new instances. Okay. And traffic is routed to the new instances according to your own schedule. Supported for EC2, on-premise systems, Lambda functions, and rollback is easy. Just route the traffic to the original instances. Okay. So if you want to roll back, you just need to route the traffic back to the original instances. So blue is active deployment, green is the new release. Correct? So blue is the active deployment and green is the new release, guys, right? So in this, you can see that we'll create a code pipeline. We'll have our code you can have it in CodeCommit, GitHub, or even Amazon S3. So we'll have it in our CodeCommit, and then we will deploy it using AWS CodeDeploy on our Amazon EC2 instances. That would be the deploy stage, beta stage, and then once it runs fine there, we will push it to production, right? They're also using CodeDeploy on our Amazon EC2 instances in the production environment, right? So that's what we will see it there. Correct? So that's what.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat offers an AWS DevOps certification course. With this program, you'll get trained in AWS services, CI/CD pipelines, infrastructure as code, containerization with Docker and Kubernetes, monitoring with CloudWatch, and much more, all through real-world projects and case studies. The course is taught by certified trainers and industry leaders who guide you with hands-on labs and practical assignments, ensuring you're fully job-ready. With this program, Intellipaat has already helped thousands of learners transition into high-paying DevOps roles, and you can check out their success stories on our Achievers channel. Link is given in the description below. So if you're looking to build a strong career in AWS DevOps, this course can be your perfect launchpad. Visit the course page link in the description below and take the first step towards becoming a certified AWS DevOps engineer.
Let's have a quick quiz question, guys. Why is AWS often preferred for DevOps implementations? Options are A, cost efficiency, B, scalability, C, security, and D, all of the above. You can comment your answers in the comment section. Now let's move ahead with the session.
We will see out there, guys. So in this project, you will learn how to set up a continuous integration and continuous delivery pipeline on AWS. A pipeline helps you automate steps in your software delivery process, such as initiating automated builds and then deploying it to Amazon EC2 instances that I told you. You will use Amazon AWS CodePipeline, a service that builds, tests, and deploy your code every time there's a code change based on the release process models, right? You define okay. And use CodePipeline to orchestrate each step in your release process. As a part of the setup, you will plug other AWS services into CodePipeline to complete your software delivery pipeline. I've already told you these things. So this guide will show you how you can create a simple pipeline that pulls code from a source repository like GitHub or CodeCommit or S3 also you can use, and automatically deploys it on your Amazon EC2 instances. Yeah. Okay. So AWS Database Migration Service helps you migrate databases to AWS quickly and securely. And the source database remains fully operational during the migration. Okay, so you can actually use AWS Database Migration Service to migrate databases from Azure to AWS, from on-premises to AWS. Like the project that I had taken, I had migrated Azure database, Azure MySQL database into AWS MySQL so I created MySQL database through RDS in AWS and created MySQL database in Azure. And then I put some table with some records into Azure database there. And then I did that migration. Is it real-time replication migration? Correct. So we did real-time replication and migration of our data from Azure real-time, correct, into AWS. We did it in real-time, correct? So we migrated it into AWS actually, right? Okay. And how we did it basically, so we used something called as AWS Database Migration Service for that. In that we did 3 steps actually. That is, we created a replication instance. Okay. So the application instance is basically created on an EC2 instance itself, and that helps in doing the migration into AWS, correct? And then we created 2 endpoints, that is source database endpoint and target database endpoint. So source database endpoint, guys, would point to which database here? Can you tell me? Source database endpoint would point to which database here? Can you tell me? To Azure, right? So it pointed to Azure database, and then target database endpoint, we pointed to AWS, and then we tested those endpoints. So it ran completely and it ran rightly, correct? So they were success. That was success. Okay. And then what we did, we created some table with some records in Azure through a client. Okay. And in Azure database, and then with database migration task, I had done what? I had set up the migration of Azure into AWS database, and we migrated those tables with those records in AWS, and I showed it to my learners that way, correct? So that's what we did. Okay, so see, AWS Database Migration Service helps you migrate databases to AWS quickly and securely. The source database remains fully operational during migration, minimizing downtime to applications that rely on the database. So since the source database is fully operational during migration, so the applications that are relying on the source database, they'll be functional during that time, correct? And the AWS Database Migration Service can migrate AWS Database Migration Service can migrate your data to and from most widely used commercial and open source databases, right? So it can migrate the data into AWS from most widely used commercial and open source databases. So use cases can be like you can migrate homogeneous data. So there can be homogeneous database migrations. Now, homogeneous means when the source and the target database is the same, like in our case, like in the case that I took today. So my source database was also MySQL database and target was also MySQL. So it was homogeneous. So you create a migration task with connections to the source and target databases, then start the migration with the click of a button. In AWS, database migration takes care of the rest for you. It was simple that way. And not too simple, but then, yeah, if you know it, how to do it, then it's simple. Then heterogeneous database migration, in which the source database is different and target is different. Like, let's say the source database is MySQL and the target is MS SQL or any other. So then the schema would be different. And that's why it is called as heterogeneous database migration. And in that case, if you have to migrate, so you will make use of the schema conversion tool, SCT, as I told you, to convert the source schema and code to match that of the target database. And then you use the database migration service to migrate the data from the source database to the target database. Right? Schema. Okay, what is schema? So schema can be different. Like, let's say, Adil, it can be like Your source schema can be having some columns, and the target schema can be having different columns, a different way of working, right? So yeah, so it can be different. Okay. So a database schema defines how data is organized within a relational database. Okay. So this is inclusive of logical constraints such as table name, fields, data types, and the relationships between these entities, right? So database schema defines how the data is organized within a relational database. And as I said, this is inclusive of logical constraints such as table names, the fields, they'll be having different data types, and then the relationships between the entities, right? Okay. So that is what the schema is, correct? And there are 6 types of database schemas based on the end user interactions with the database system, like your star schema, snowflake schema, relational model, network model, hierarchical model, flat model, right? So there can be different schemas, isn't it? That is there, right? So in order for the source database to be migrated to the target database, they should be having the same schema, correct? So if not, then you have to convert the schema through schema conversion tool, isn't it? Then the migration can happen seamlessly. And then you can also have database consolidation, in which you can have more than one source databases and they all can be migrated to one target database. So you can use AWS Data Migration Service to consolidate multiple source databases into a single target database. So this can be done for homogeneous and heterogeneous migrations, and can use this feature with all supported database engines as well. Correct? Wherein one or more source can go to one or more, like one target database, correct? Continuous data replication has a multitude of use cases, including disaster recovery instance, synchronization, geographic distribution, database distribution, and development testing, environment synchronization. So you can use DMS for both homogeneous and heterogeneous data replications for all supported database engines. And guys, what are the benefits and features of this? So benefits and features: minimal downtime would be there. All data changes to the source database that occur during the migration are continuously replicated to the target, allowing the source database to be fully operational during the migration process. Plus, it supports widely used databases. It has low cost. So AWS Data Migration Service supports homogeneous migrations such as Oracle to Oracle, as well as heterogeneous migrations between database platforms such as Oracle to Amazon Aurora as well. And it is low cost. So you only pay for these compute resources used during the migration process, and any additional log storage migrating a terabyte size database can be done for as little as $3. It's reliable also because multiple availability zone option allows you to have high availability for database migration. You can have it in multiple AZs. And continuous data replication by enabling redundant replication instances, correct? So you can have it that way, reliable as well. So a pipeline is what? It helps you automate steps in your software delivery process, such as initiating automatic builds and then deploying to Amazon EC2 instances. So as I told you yesterday, like it supports your agile model of deployment, wherein what is the pretty good thing is with CI/CD pipeline, if you put some code in your repository, the deployment of that, that is the build compilation of that code, then deployment testing on that code happens automatically. And if you change something in that repository, change some code in that repository, create a new version of your website, that means change some part of the code in that repository. So then this process of build, that is the compilation testing, compilation deployment testing, that again happens automatically on that code, right? So let's say if you have created a website, okay, and the home page is, let's say, hello world, and then you make some changes to that website. So that new home page, let's say hello world, this is the updated home page, or whatever the changes you made, that will be automatically reflected as soon as you make the changes in the code in the repository. Though the compilation, the deployment, the testing on that code will happen in an automated fashion. And that is possible with the help of DevOps tools. That is the one that we are going to use in a project like CodeDeploy, CodePipeline and stuff. Okay. So a pipeline helps you automate the steps in your software delivery process, such as initiating the automatic builds and then deploying to Amazon EC2 instances. And you will use the AWS CodePipeline, a service that builds, tests, and deploys your code every time there is a code change. Okay. So every time, as I said, whenever there be a code change, so automated build, test, and deployment of your code will happen automatically, right? Based on the release process models that you define. Okay. So that is there. So use CodePipeline to orchestrate each step in your release process. Okay. And as a part of your setup, you will plug other AWS services into CodePipeline to complete your software delivery pipeline. Like you will club other AWS services like CodeDeploy, CodeCommit, EC2 to complete your delivery pipeline, right? To complete your software delivery pipeline, right? So we'll have some file. We'll also have, let's say, index.html, and we'll be keeping it in some repository on my machine in some folder, let's say demo repository, demo folder, correct? So that would be there. And then what I'll be doing is from my machine, I'll just keep it up on like from my machine itself. I'll just put these files on the local repository on my machine, right? So what I'll do is I'll just put them on a local repository on my machine, correct? So let's say there'll be a local repository on my machine where I'll be keeping those files. Well, I'll actually put those files in. Okay, and that will be the Git repository, correct? That is on my local Git, correct? So I'll just keep it on my local Git. That is Git, or I'll just call it as local repository. And then what I'll do is from this local Git, local repository, what I'll do is I will put those files on a remote repository. And guys, can you tell me which will be my remote repository like? So from my machine where they are kept in the Git, that is in the local repository, what I'll do is I will put them onto the remote repository. And which will be my remote repository? Can you tell me? It can be GitHub or it can be CodeCommit, correct? So it can be my GitHub or it can be CodeCommit, right? Yeah. So I'll be committing the changes. I will be putting the code onto my remote repository that is in my AWS CodeCommit, or you can say GitHub, right? So that would be AWS CodeCommit, right? And you have seen we have used GitHub in past, but did not use AWS CodeCommit, right? So we can do it on GitHub also or CodeCommit also. So it will be really good if we explore AWS CodeCommit. Okay, Vishesh, we will then do it on CodeCommit also. I mean, no issues, right? Can do it on GitHub or CodeCommit, as you say. I mean, we'll do it on CodeCommit, correct? So fine, welcome. And then what else? So there will so the changes would be we will put it on AWS CodeCommit. That is AWS CodeCommit repository, or you can say GitHub. So, I mean, we'll put it on AWS CodeCommit. That is the remote repository, correct? And basically, there'll be few commands that we'll be using here to put the code. That is the add command, then the commit. So these are the DevOps commands that you may have already used it before if you have done the DevOps labs before in on-premises also, that is with free services also. So we'll say add, and then we'll have commit, then we'll push it to demo in CodeCommit, right? Then we push it to the demo repository in demo folder in CodeCommit, right? Fine, so that's what we will do. Yeah, so we will do push, right? We'll add, we'll push, we'll do it to we'll push it to the demo folder in CodeCommit. I hope that's good with you, Dinesh, right? Anyways, we'll do that. So can you repeat once? Actually not able to connect, some internet issue from my side. Telling you what we'll be doing in this lab. So we will have some files on my local machine in a demo folder, and then I'll have it first inserted in the local repository, that is the Git on my local machine. And then from there, I will push it onto the remote repository. The remote repository can be my GitHub or AWS CodeCommit. So here I'll be using AWS CodeCommit as my remote repository, correct? And then I'll be pushing the code in a demo folder out there, right? So I'll be adding the code, committing, pushing it to the demo repository in CodeCommit, right? So that's what I will do. It is CodeCommit. It's not CDOE. So it is basically CodeCommit, right? So it's CodeCommit, right? Okay, so yeah. Yes, so that's what we'll do. And yes, the replication part, like the cloning, if we change something, some file, some data in the local repository on my local machine on my laptop, so I will just clone it. I'll just make those changes in the remote repository by cloning it onto the remote repository, correct? So if I have some changes on my local repo, so I'll just have those changes reflected into my remote repository by cloning it onto my remote repository, correct? Okay, fine. So now once I will have the data, let's say my complete website content, my complete website, whatever the content you have, Zomato website or any website content in your remote repository, correct, on CodeCommit, then what you can do is, then what we'll do is, we will just deploy it using the CodeDeploy and CodePipeline onto our EC2 instance, right? So that's what we will do then. So then what we will, so then I'll draw it here. So then I can have, let's say something called as a CodeDeploy. Okay, let me just draw it here. Right, so this, let's say, is my EC2 instance. Okay, and then this entire thing is possible by creating a code pipeline here. And this will be my code deploy, let's say. Right. Then I have it on EC2, correct? And here I can have, like, I can deploy this complete website content, or maybe you can say the index.html page and the complete website content will be deployed here, right? And if I make some changes in this code commit repository in this index.html page or any website content, so that would be automatically deployed onto this EC2 instance again with the help of this code deploy and code pipeline. Correct. So even this will have the updated HTML, like index.html or the complete website content. Correct. Right. So this is how it goes. Correct. So this is how we would achieve it. Correct. So is it clear to everyone? Yeah. Do share this, Purushottam. Yeah, of course, I'll share it with you. Don't worry. I think I've already shared it, but I'll again put it. Yeah. So is it clear? So add is used to so add is used to add a remote repo with local repo. Correct. Yeah. So whatever is there on the local repo, the data, the website content or any content, if you want to add that onto the remote repo, so you can add it with add commit push command. So anyways, we'll do that with those commands. And once that code, the website content comes onto your remote repository, let's say a code commit repository or GitHub, then from there, you can just deploy it onto your EC2 instance with the help of code deploy and creating a pipeline with the help of code pipeline. So why pipeline? Because once the code deploy deploys it on EC2 instance, correct, that particular code, that index.html comes and your website starts running on your EC2 instance. And if there is some changes that you have made on that code, on that website content, let's say on your local machine, so then you push it onto the remote repository, that is the demo folder in the code commit. So then once the things are changed into the remote repository, so those changes will be auto reflected on your EC2 instance, will be automatically deployed onto your EC2 instance. So it's like those changes, that code would be automatically taken by the code deploy service, and then it would be deployed on your EC2 instance automatically. And you will see the changes, you will see the change website content on your EC2 instance. And this will be possible with the help of a code pipeline service, right? So is it clear to everybody, guys, till this point? Yes. And if this is clear, then we shall go and we can just try doing this lab, right? Okay, all clear? Fine. That is good then. Okay, if you have any doubt, you please ask me. Otherwise, we'll just get ahead. Okay, now let me get along with this. Right, I'll show you this diagram. So here, see code pipeline diagram. Also, this one I can just show it to you. So see, setting up CI/CD pipeline on AWS. So this description, anyways, I've discussed. So see, in AWS code pipeline, you have your code, let's say on S3 or AWS CodeCommit or GitHub. And then from there, with the help of AWS CodeDeploy, you deploy it on your Amazon EC2 instance. That can be in your deploy stage, can be beta stage. That is the intermediary stage. So you run it there, and if it runs fine on that EC2 instance, then you finally can deploy it in the production again with AWS CodeDeploy on another EC2 instance, right? So that's how you can go about it, right? Better clear, right? Correct, Aman. But still, if it is some doubt you have, you please ask me now also. Fine. So let's get ahead, guys. So see, we'll use code pipeline to deploy the code maintained in a code commit repository, okay, to a single EC2 instance. So your pipeline is triggered when you push a change to the code commit repository, and the pipeline deploys your changes to an Amazon EC2 instance using code deploy as the deployment service, correct? So that's what we'll do, okay? And the pipeline has two stages, a source stage for your code commit source action and a deployment stage, deploy for the code deploy deployment action, right? So we will do that. So we'll first create a code commit repository, right? So first you create a repository in code commit. Your pipeline gets source code from this repository when it runs, and you will create a local repository where you maintain and update the code before you push it to the code commit repository, right? So you will first create a repository in code commit, and your pipeline will get the code from this repository when it runs, but to this repository, you'll have to put some code. So you'll create a local repository on your local machine where you maintain and update the code before you push it to the CodeCommit repository. And from there, like you will put the code on your local machine, on your local repository as stated. And then from there, you will put it into the CodeCommit repository. And then from CodeCommit repository, the code would be deployed onto your EC2 instances with the CodeDeploy and CodePipeline, correct? Okay, so that's what we will do here, right? So we will do that steps here. Fine. So 1 second. So you can do this along with me, guys. Okay, so you can do this along with me, right? So let's create a repository in CodeCommit, right? No, we don't need a build server here. Why? Because we are not going to compile this code. This will be a simple code that we are going to deploy it. So we don't need a build server here, right? Anyway, the build stage will come into our process, but we don't need to use that, right? Okay. Vishesh Kumar. Fine. So just search for CodeCommit. To be very frank, but because I have to complete this also, but I'll not be too fast. Okay. So try to do it along with me. If you can. If you are unable to do it along with me, then you can try it later on as well. But you can try to do it along with me. Do we need to connect to our GitHub as well? Not needed, because on CodeCommit, you will be storing the code. So CodeCommit will be a replacement for your GitHub here, right? So you don't need, if you are using GitHub, then you don't need to use CodeCommit, right? Yes, we. Okay, so let's say you can go into North Virginia, okay? And then in that, what you choose is, you say create repository, okay? Enter a name, you can, okay, you can take this name, my demo repo, okay? You can take any name as such, but you can take this name as well, my demo repo, okay? So I've taken this name, my demo repo. And that's it. And then you can just say create description is optional. Tags are again optional, right? So you can just leave that and just give the name and say create. Okay. So is it clear? Right. So we have created. Okay. So if you have your code in that you want to put it in Python or Java, so you can use that. But then that is not required for us, Yashasvi, right? Right. Okay. Because we don't have a code in that, right? So that then you can use. Okay. If you, so it's like you want to ask that when you create the repository, enable Amazon Code Guru Reviewer for Java and Python. That is optional. So get recommendations to improve the quality of the Java and Python code for all pull requests in this repository. A service linked role will be created in IAM on your behalf if it does not exist. So it will, so if you have Java and Python code, so this Amazon Code Guru Reviewer will review that code for you, okay, if you enable this. But we don't have that code and we don't want to review it as well, right? Okay, so this is repository. I hope I'll see that. You are signed in as a root account. You cannot configure. Yeah, correct. I'm coming to that. Have patience, Yashasvi. I'm going a bit slow. Let everybody follow me, right? So I'll tell you, you are signed in as root user. You cannot configure SSH connections for a root account, and HTTPS connections for a root account are not recommended. Consider signing in as an IAM user and then setting up your connection. I'm getting this warning. Yes, everybody of us will get this warning itself, right? If I go to my demo repo, even I will have this warning. I'll tell you what it means. Okay, so see what you are getting here is the warning is that you are signed in using a root account. Okay, so you cannot configure SSH connections for a root account. So guys, see, you have created a repository in your CodeCommit, that is in a remote repository in CodeCommit. So you want to clone it also, like you want to get the code from your local machine onto this remote repository, from your local Git on, from your local machine, from your local machine, from local Git of your local machine to this remote repository, to this code commit my demo repository. So for that, you will have to clone it with the local machine's local repository, correct? But it says that there are two options to clone, or rather three. So SSH, HTTPS. So it says that you are signed in as a root account, so you cannot configure SSH connections for a root account. So you cannot clone the URL with SSH, and HTTPS connections for a root account are not recommended. So consider signing in as an IAM user and setting up your connection, right? So that's why what you will have to do is you will have to create an IAM user, and then you will do what? You will clone with that IAM user, correct? So you will clone this repository with your local repository through that IAM user, because you cannot, it is not recommended to clone it with the root user. Because see here, see cloning, I've done it, correct? So you have to clone the remote repository, that is my demo repository in the code commit, with your local machines repository, with your local repository, local Git repository. So for that, it is not recommended to do it with the root account. So you should create an IAM user account, and you should do the cloning of this demo repo with that IAM user, through that IAM user with the your local Git, your local machine, correct? Yeah. So that's what we'll do. So here we'll have to create a user. So let's go and create a user then, guys. Yeah. So shall I create a user then? Taking as an example, Sandeep saying, if I'm trying to deploy some services and container instances on EKS, the following steps will be applicable. Please confirm. We commit code to code commit. A pipeline will trigger while we'll first deploy the code on EC2 instance to perform code build, and unit will happen on EC2 instance. Once the unit test and build process is successful, then we will need another pipeline to deploy the code as a container on EKS. Steps are not correct. Can you please update the understanding? See, here you will put the code on code commit, so that is good. But then the pipeline, why you are first deploying on EC2 and then on EKS, you can directly deploy it on ECS. That is, you can directly deploy it on your this one. That is containers. You can directly deploy it with your EKS service, okay, or ECS. So there is no point of using EC2 then in picture, right? You can directly deploy it on the containers, correct, with your EKS or ECS. Okay, so that is the updates that you will do, right? Okay. So see, you don't need to worry on this, but then this is HTTPS GRC is a protocol to use with Git remote code commit. Okay. So this utility provides a simple method for pushing and pulling code from code commit repositories by extending the Git. Okay. And it is recommended method for supporting connections made with federated access, identity providers, and temporary credentials. So again, this is similar to your HTTPS. So we can just make use of HTTPS or SSH, correct? But we will do it with a what? Sanjeev, with a user account, right? So guys, shall we go and create a user account then? Yeah. Users must create a new password at next sign in. I'll just disable this. Next, I'll just give him what the administrator access, so that he will be able to use the code commit repository also. I'll attach the permission directly, and I'll just specify him the administrator access. Okay. Show once again, please. Okay. Okay, fine. So just go to users. I'll just cancel it out. Okay, so just say add users here. Give the user a name. Let's say CI user. You'll name it. Okay. And then you would give provide user access to AWS Management Console. And then I'll just say I want to create an IAM user. And then I'll give a custom password here, with which I will log in with this user. Correct. And I'll say that he should not, he doesn't need to change the password at the next login. I'll just see that. And then I'll just say next here. then I'll just attach in the policy directly. So I'll just give him administrator access. And yes, if if you want to search if there is explicit policy for code commit, yeah, so there is. So you can give him AWS code commit full access also, right? Okay, right? There is the explicit policy, Dibya Jyoti, for that as well. Or you can just give him the admin access and then he'll get all, even the code commit access as well, correct? Okay, and then I'll go next. And then you can create this user, right? Okay, so is it clear? So this is how we can just create this user and then we will log in with this user, right? Then we'll log in with this user. 1 second. Just do this, right? What you're saying is, can you, okay, clear. And then Meg Singh saying, can you repeat policy? So I just gave the administrator access policy. Okay. Meg, I've just given the admin access. Okay. I will show it to you maybe. Right. So which access we have given? The administrator access. So if you see the permissions, I have given the administrator access. If you have not given, you can go to add permissions. You can say add permission, and we did this add attach policies directly, and we attach the admin access, right? Okay, I hope that is clear to you. We will provide the access to management console, Yashasvi, because we'll be accessing this user from the console itself, correct? So provide the access through console, correct? Right, Yashasvi, right, mixing? I hope that is clear to you. Yeah, we do, correct. You can give AWS CodeCommit full access also or administrator access also. Fine. All good. So now, guys, you can just log in with this user, okay? The CI user that you have created. So I'll just go to incognito window to log into this user. Why? Because if I log in from there itself, so I'll be logged out of my root account, right? So I'll go to aws.amazon.com and in the incognito window. So here you can give that username, CI user I have given, and then the password, whatever you have chosen. One thing, I'm still unable to allow the administrator access to CI user, right? So that's why I cannot speed up, right? So you need to search it in policies there, Mohan, and you will find it there. Can you show the same, right? I can show you the same, but then people want me to take it faster then. And how can I take it faster if I'll show you again? Okay, let me show it to you again quickly. Right, so, so here I'll go with CI user, and then there is the permission, and then in that, you will say add permission, okay, and then you say attach policies directly, and you will see administrator access. If you don't see it, just type it here and search it and you'll get it. And then you just say next, and you add it. Right, Mohanja, I hope that is clear to you. Okay, so now I've logged in with that user. Okay, and from this user itself, I'll just go to what? Code commit. Right, so I'll just go with code commit. And once we are here, so where is the repository? I don't see the repository, correct? Okay, so the region is Stockholm. Okay, fine. So I need to change it to North Virginia. Of course, change it to North Virginia. So just go to North Virginia and you should be able to see it then. Right, so I have it here now. If I'll go, it's a good place, by the way. Okay, yeah, fine. So now you can just go into this repository. I've never been there. I don't know how good it is. So you can get into that, right? The repository, and then you can try it out here. Well, this is running slow. I don't know why. Okay. And here you can just clone the URL. So you can clone SSH or you can clone HTTPS. So let me say I'll clone HTTPS or SSH here, right? Okay. So let's say I'll clone through HTTPS. So this is the URL. Now you can just copy this URL. Okay. You can just copy this URL and let me right now just put it in this notepad here, this URL, correct? Okay, HTTPS URL. Okay, or you can you can copy the, you can clone the SSH URL also. So let me clone the HTTPS URL, and that I have done, right? So this is what I have done. Now I'll just clone it with my on-premises, that is with my local Git, correct? Okay.
Just a quick info guys, Intellipaat offers an AWS DevOps certification course. With this program, you'll get trained in AWS services, CI/CD pipelines, infrastructure as code, containerization with Docker and Kubernetes, monitoring with CloudWatch, and much more, all through real-world projects and case studies. The course is taught by certified trainers and industry leaders who guide you with hands-on labs and practical assignments, ensuring you're fully job ready. With this program, Intellipaat has already helped thousands of learners transition into high-paying DevOps roles, and you can check out their success stories on our Achievers channel. Link is given in the description below. So if you're looking to build a strong career in AWS DevOps, this course can be your perfect launchpad. Visit the course page link in the description below and take the first step towards becoming a certified AWS DevOps engineer.
Let's have a quick quiz question, guys. What is the version control system used by AWS CodeCommit? Your options are A. Git, B. Mercurial, C. Subversion, and option D. Perforce. You can comment your answers in the comment section. Now let's move ahead with the session.
So now, in my local machine, what I'll do is I'll download the code for a sample application, right? So I'll just download that code. I'll just download and put it in some folder there, right? So I'll just get that code, sample.zip, sample app linux.zip. Okay. Okay. 1 second, guys. 1 second. Okay, I will need this credential. Okay, I'll tell you this thing. So fine. So see, this IAM user needs the username and password through which we can clone here, right? So for that, I need to have that kind of an access for my IAM user, correct? So I'll tell you from where you can get that. Okay. So let me do it first, and then I'll explain you that thing if you have any confusion. So go to your root account, that is the global user Puru, and then out there go to the security credentials. Go to security credentials, and then go to what SS this thing HTTPS grid credentials for AWS CodeCommit. HTTPS grid credentials for AWS CodeCommit for this user. Which user, guys? The CI user. Okay. For the CI user from your root account Puru, you just go to CI user and then go to this one, that is HTTPS git credentials for AWS CodeCommit, and then just say generate credentials here. Okay, and this is the username and the password that has been generated. So you can just download these credentials. And once downloaded these credentials, you can just open them up. Okay, so these are the credentials that you have got. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this username. Okay, and then I'm going to put it here. That is in this username, which it asks me when I try to clone. And then I will also get in the password here. That is this one. And then I will put that password there, right out here. And I'll say continue. Okay. So I'll say continue. So now I am, I have cloned my remote repository to my local repository, correct? So I have cloned my remote repository to my local repository. And now I will try to add the things from my local repository onto the remote repository, right? Okay. So the clone link, so it is just like git clone and then that repository name that you had cloned from there, right? Similar to this, right? You have to give your repository name here. So now I'll just try to say git add a. Okay. Okay, not a git repository. It says me. Okay. Fine, I'll say git init. But that's not required, I think. So I'll just say git init. Fine. And then I'll just say git add. One second. Warning in the working copy of license LF will be replaced by CLRF. Okay. Does not have a commit checkout. Okay, just a second, give me. I'm able to do that. Okay. I'll just do git add. Oh, sorry. Then. Oh, sorry, git add. Docs. One second, hold on. Yeah. No, it's giving me error, does not have a commit checkout. I'll just do this commit. No, what it says is untracked files, nothing added to commit, but untracked files present. Okay, let me just do it, not here. Hold on. Right, so these are there. Script this. Ah, okay. Fine. Just hold on. Just hold on, guys. So I'll get these things here. So I have cloned this repository onto my machine. Now I will get into this repository and I will paste it here. And then I will do git bash here. I'll put these contents here. Okay, and I will remove it from here. And this folder I'll get into. Okay. Just a second. Fine. Here I'll try to do git add a. Yeah. So see, it's working now. And then I'll say git commit. Yeah, and then I'll say git push. So see, the changes are getting copied. So I'm done, right? Okay. Now, if you have any confusion or if I've created any confusion, I'll just clear it out. Okay. So just hold on. Let me just see whether the changes are there in my code commit repository, if they are there, right? So if I go to repository, inside this, see, you have got those things, right? You have got the changes in. Yeah. So I didn't get it, Dinesh. What you are trying to say? Yeah. So what I did, guys, basically, I'll just tell you this thing. I will just kind of go to properties, options, and then I'll go to what? I will go to the text, and I'll go to this. I'll make it a 20 point, apply. Okay, fine. Okay. So fine. What you need to do first is round and round. Please repeat it again. Yeah, sure, Dinesh, I'm going to do that. Don't worry, I'm going to do that. Yeah. So first of all, guys, I'll just tell you what I did. So first of all, see, what you need to do is when you log in with this user, okay, when you log in with the CI user, then at that time, what you need to do is you just go into that repository, okay, that my demo repo, and then in that you go to clone URL and you say clone HTTPS. And when you say clone HTTPS, you will get this URL link. So just copy this URL link. And what you do is you paste it in a notepad file here. Okay. And then what is the next thing that you got to do is you got to clone this code commit. Please listen very carefully, those who have not got it or those who have got it also, right? So when you clone this URL, okay, so just copy this URL on a notepad and then what you need to do is you need to clone this code commit repository with your local Git. You need to clone this code commit repository with your local Git. And for that, guys, your user, that is the CI user, will need the code commit credentials, okay, to do that. So what you do is you go to the root account, root AWS account, that is you go to the root AWS account, that is Puru account, and then in that, what you do is you go to the CI user, correct? You go to users and you go to that CI user, and then inside that CI user, go to security credentials, and there, if you go down, you will see this HTTPS grid credentials for AWS CodeCommit. So you just say generate credentials, and then you will get a username and password for this. You'll get a file. You just save that file. This is that file that gives the user's username and the password through which you can log in with this user from the Git to that user account onto that code commit, correct? So with this username and password that you have got, fine. Now, what you need to do is, see, you have done 2 steps till this point, right? So I've told you 2 steps. What are those 2 steps? First is go to that user account, go to that repository and say clone URL, clone HTTPS. Copy this URL, put it in your notepad. And then what you do is you go to the root account, go to that IAM user, CI user, and then go to security credentials. And then in security credentials, you need to go to HTTPS Git credentials for AWS CodeCommit. Okay. In that, you just need to say generate credentials and copy the username and password. That file you'll get, you can just download that file that will contain the username and password of that user. Now, this is the username and password of the CI user through which you can log in from your local machine. You can clone your local machine, local Git on to that code commit repository. So what I have done, I'll just repeat it. So see, first of all, you have logged in with that user. You go to that repository. You say what? You say clone URL. Okay. And you clone HTTPS URL, because the ultimate aim here is to clone your local Git, your laptop's repository with this remote code commit repository, correct? So for that, let me do this and I'll tell you that, isn't it, right? Okay, let me tell you this. I'm going step by step here. Okay, so let me finish, guys. Okay. So here, go into your remote repository, okay, from this user, that is this CI user, and then you just say clone URL, because you have to clone this remote repository, this my demo repository with your what? With your local machine. Okay, with your local machine. Okay, so I've just copied, I said clone HTTPS, and once I said clone, so I've just copied this URL. For the time being, I'm just copying it in my notepad. So I've just copied it in my notepad. Okay. And then see, from my local machine, I will try to clone my local machine's local Git repository with the code commit repository. So I will need the Git credentials of that CI user. Okay. I will need what? I will need the Git credentials of the CI user to actually clone my local repository with this remote my demo repository, correct? In the code commit. So for that, I went to the root user. Okay. And then from there, I went to IAM. I went to that CI user, and then in security credentials, I got this users what? HTTPS Git credentials for AWS CodeCommit. I just generated these credentials. So I got a file, I downloaded that, and that gave me the username and password of the CI user for the Git credentials. So HTTPS Git credentials for AWS CodeCommit of the CI user, I got it, through which I can actually clone my local repository with my remote repository. Okay, through which I can actually clone my local repository from my local machine with the remote repository that is in the code commit, right? So to do that, what I did then, so I went to a folder on my local machine. That is, I just went, I had given you a folder, some files. Okay. So those files that were there that I downloaded, I had given it to you. So those files were in the sample app Linux folder, right? So those files, I just copied it in a folder. That is, I went to D drive. I created a temp folder here. Okay. And then inside this temp folder, you can directly paste whatever is there inside those files. So I created a my demo repo folder, and then what you need to do is you don't need to create this my demo repo folder. So I created this my demo repo folder, but you don't need to create this my demo repo folder, guys. You can just go inside temp, like here I went in, and then here you just need to do right click. Okay. You just need to do right click. And so you don't need to manually create this my demo repo folder. You don't need to create it. Okay, this my demo repo folder is the repository name. So what the mistake that I had done is I had created this my demo repo folder manually. You don't need to create this, because this my demo repo folder will come in automatically here, because that is the name of your remote repository. So when you will clone your remote repository, that is your CodeCommit repository, so that my demo repo folder will automatically come here, Okay, so you don't need to create this my demo repo folder. Okay, but what you need to do is you just need to go inside that temp, any folder on your machine, create a blank folder like temp on your machine, and go inside that and just right click there and say git bash here. So if you don't have local git for Windows, so you just need to download and install local git for Windows. And then when you right click here on any folder, you will see the option for git bash here. So then I said git bash here. And once I said git bash here, so what I did next is I just next thing was I just said git clone. So the first command that I did after doing git bash was git clone. So I said git clone. And so I said what? I said git clone. And then I had given this repository name, correct? So I had given this repository name there, right? Okay, so I said git clone, and I just gave this repository name. I'll paste it to you. And as soon as I gave this, guys, so my repository from CodeCommit got cloned with my local machine here. So I got this my demo repository from my CodeCommit that was cloned from my CodeCommit onto my local machine here in my temp folder. Okay, so then what I did is then I went inside this repository on my local machine, that is my demo repository, and I copied that website content. Which content? That I got in this which folder? In the sample app Linux folder. So that complete content, I copied it into that repository that was cloned from my CodeCommit repository onto my local machine. Okay, this my demo repo that was cloned from my remote repository onto my local machine. So I copied all those files here, but now these files are here only. They are not present into my CodeCommit repository. So I need to add it to this CodeCommit repository. Anyways, this demo repo folder and this demo repo folder are cloned. Okay, so this demo repo folder and that are cloned, right? So I just pasted the contents here, and then I just put these contents onto the remote repository by putting these commands. Which commands? So I said git add a, okay, and then I said git commit m, add sample application files. I have given the message, and then I said git push. So with these three DevOps command, I was able to put the contents onto my remote repository, that is onto that my remote repository, that is the my demo repo repository into the CodeCommit. So once I executed these three commands, right? So then I was able to do what? Once I put these three commands, so then I was able to copy all those files onto my remote repository. Okay, and then I just went to my remote repository. I checked it there. Okay, in CodeCommit in repository, in my demo repo repository, and I could see those files, right? So is it clear to all of you? Yeah, git init not required here, right? Right. So is it clear now to everybody? Yes. Just let me know now. See why previously I was getting the error, why it was not working, because I had not cloned my demo repo repository from CodeCommit onto my local repository, onto my local machine. I was trying to create that my demo repository, my demo repo repository locally itself here, with a folder, and then I was trying to do it. So I had not cloned it from my remote repository, and that's why these commands were not working, right? Yeah, sure. I'll put these commands on the text as well, right? In fact, I have the complete lab of this. I'll share it with you, which contains these commands. Anyways, I'll put these commands there also, right? So yeah, I'll put all these commands there itself. Yeah. So now do let me know, whosoever had the issues, had the doubts, is it clear to everybody of you or not, guys? Tell me. Aman saying, yes, I just want to ask you one thing, that without installing Git in my window machine, can I do the same thing by launching Ubuntu server and using Git there? Yes, of course, you can. See, you can do it on Ubuntu also, but then you will have to download local Git for Ubuntu server, right? So like local Git for Windows, you'll have to download local Git for Ubuntu, right? Then Shubham saying, in local machine, we just need to create a folder, git bash cloned, copy the content of zip to the content folder, git add, git commit, right? These steps I mentioned, correct? Yeah. So first in your local machine, we just need to we just need to create a folder, correct? And then you say git bash and you clone that my demo repository onto your local machine, and then go inside that my demo repository on your local machine, and then add these three commands: git add, git commit, and git push. And the content that would be there in that folder that you have copied, that would be cloned to your remote machine, right? Local machine would have been easier. Local machine would have been easier. I'm not getting that, Dinesh. The type, there's typo error. Can you please correct it? Perform this with my local command or PowerShell, installing it locally without bash. See, you can try to do that as well, Sagar Kumar. Yeah. Git push. Or you can do this also. You have created the repository. You can directly paste the content there also. But this is a good way of doing it. That's why I've told you. Download Git on your local machines, and then you will be able to see Git bash. Meg Singh, right? Okay. So anyway, see, now I've told you, okay, what you need to do. Just try it out with that. Those who are not able to do it, I think 2 or 3 of you, others are able to do it, right? So those who are not able to do it, I've told you what you need to do. Fine. And still, if it's not done, maybe you can let me know. I can help you out at the end. Fine. But let's get ahead here now, and let's do the next step in, right? Okay. So now what you can do is we can create an instance, right? And install the CodeDeploy agent onto it. But before, yeah, so we can just go and what we can do is we can just create an Amazon EC2 instance, let's say a Linux instance, and then I'll install the CodeDeploy agent there. Correct? Okay. Maybe we can just do this step and then we can go in for the break. Will that be okay with you? And then we can do the break after after EC2 instance, before CodeDeploy, right? Okay. So just go to EC2, guys, and let's create a simple EC2 instance wherein I will deploy my code. Okay. Fine. So just go to instances. Okay. Why I'm going with CI user? I can just go with the root user. Okay. So I'll go to EC2. Anyways, I can go from there also. He's having the admin permission. but you can just go to EC2 with your root user. And then you can create an instance, right? So what I'm going to do in this step, guys, see EC2 part, in this step, you create the Amazon EC2 instance where you deploy a sample application, correct? So in this step, we will create an Amazon EC2 instance where we'll deploy a sample application. As a part of this process, I'll create an instance role that allows to install and manage do the management of the CodeDeploy agent on the instance, correct? So as a part of this process, create an instance role that allows install and management of the CodeDeploy agent for the instance, correct? Okay, so I'll create an EC2 instance, then I will also create a role that will allow me to install and manage the CodeDeploy agent on the instance. Okay, so the CodeDeploy agent is a software package that enables an instance to be used in CodeDeploy deployments. Okay, so you also attach policies that allows the instance to fetch files that the CodeDeploy agent uses to deploy your application and to allow the instance to be managed by SSM. Okay, so that's what we will do here, right? So guys, in this step, we'll create Amazon. In this step, we'll create Amazon EC2 instance where you deploy a sample application, correct? And as a part of this process, we'll create an instance role also that allows in this as a part of this process, create an instance role that allows install and management of CodeDeploy agent on the instance. Okay. And the CodeDeploy agent is a software package that enables an instance to be used in CodeDeploy deployments. So you also attach the policies that allows the instance to fetch files that the code deployment agent uses to allow to deploy your application and to allow the instance to be managed by SSM. So let's create this thing, right? Okay, and install the agent. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll need a role for this. Break. Shivani, I have asked you, shall we do this step 3 first and then go in for the break? I think that if it is okay with you. Sure. Okay, fine. So see, we need a role. So before creating an EC2 instance, I'll create a role first. Okay. And I am user to do all stuff. You can go with that, Ranjit. You can go with root user. That's not a problem. That will not make any difference. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll first create a role. Okay. So I'll go to IAM here and I'll first create a role. Okay. For my EC2. And that role will allow, so I'll create an instance role that allows install and management of the CodeDeploy agent on the instance so that the CodeDeploy agent can be installed on my EC2 instance. For that, I'll create a role. And guys, what is CodeDeploy agent? It's a software package that enables an instance to be used in the CodeDeploy deployments. Okay. Fine. So I'll create a role. So I'll go to roles here. Okay. And I'll say create a role. And in the trusted entity type, I'll select EC2 because I want to create this role for my EC2. Correct. So I'll select EC2. And then I'll go to next permissions. And see, I want to create this role. I want to assign a policy to this role. So I will search for and I'll select the policy named Amazon EC2 role for AWS CodeDeploy because I want to create it for CodeDeploy. Correct? Right? So I'll search for a built-in policy that is Amazon EC2 role for AWS CodeDeploy. Right? So I'll just try to search for that Amazon. Or I can just maybe search for CodeDeploy here and I'll just find it. Okay, so this is the one, I think. No. Amazon EC2 role for AWS CodeDeploy. See, this is even Amazon EC2 role for AWS CodeDeploy. This is what I'll select. Okay, please show step once again. Fine. So what I did, I came to roles. Okay, and in roles, I said create a role. So I want to create a role for which service? For my EC2 service, because I want to have this role working on my EC2 instance. Okay, so use case is EC2, and then I said next. Okay, and then what I'll select in the trusted in the permissions, what I'll select, I'll search for the policy named Amazon EC2 role for AWS CodeDeploy, correct? Because I want to have it for my CodeDeploy, correct? So I'll just search for CodeDeploy here and I'll get it. So here it is, Amazon EC2 role for AWS CodeDeploy. So I'll just select this permission, correct? Okay. Fine. So I'll just go with that. And I will also select another role, that is, I will search for and select another policy here, rather the role, another policy, that is, I'll also select Amazon SSM managed instance core policy, correct? So you can just search for SSM instance, SSM managed, and maybe I can search for it. No, it's not showing me. Okay, I'll need to remove this and SSM managed. Yeah, this is the one. See, Amazon SSM managed instance core. This also policy I will select. So these two policies I will select, and then I will say next. So those two policies selected. Next, I'll say, and I'll give this role a name. So I will enter a name for this role. So I'll say EC2 instance role. Okay, EC2 instance role. So it allows EC2 instances to call AWS services on your behalf. That's all good. Fine. And so I have added two permissions here. Amazon SSM managed instance cores and Amazon EC2 role for AWS CodeDeploy, and then I'll create this role. Right, guys? Now, why I have added these two permissions? So I've written it here. See, in the EC2 part, you will create Amazon EC2 instance where you will deploy your sample application. So I'll create my Amazon EC2 instance, but before that, as a part of this process, I will create an instance role that I'm creating that allows install and management of AWS CodeDeploy agent on my instance, right? Okay, so that will allow the installation and management of my CodeDeploy agent on my EC2 instance, correct? Okay, so for that, I will create this role. I'm creating this role because this role will allow my CodeDeploy agent to be installed and manage my EC2 instance. So I will create an instance role that allows install and management of my CodeDeploy agent on my EC2 instance. Now, why I'll need the CodeDeploy agent? So CodeDeploy agent is a software package that enables an instance to be used in CodeDeploy deployment so that I can deploy my application on my EC2 instance with CodeDeploy. So I want the CodeDeploy to deploy the application on my EC2 instance. So for that, I need a CodeDeploy agent of CodeDeploy to be installed on my EC2 instance, correct? Okay, so that's why I'm creating a role that allows install and management of the CodeDeploy agent on my EC2 instance, correct? And in that role, I will attach the policies that allows the instance to fetch files that the CodeDeploy agent uses. So that CodeDeploy agent will use some files so that I will allow it, I will give it through the policies, right? So I will also attach the policies that allows the instance to fetch the files that the CodeDeploy agent uses to deploy your application and to allow the instance to be managed by SSM. Okay, so that is why I am including two policies, okay, with my role. And which are those two policies that I am including are the Amazon EC2 role for AWS CodeDeploy and what? Amazon SSM managed core as Amazon SSM managed instance core, right? So these two policies I am putting it here, right? So see, what is SSM? What is Amazon SSM? So SSM stands for Simple Systems Manager. Okay, so Amazon EC2 Simple Systems Manager, that is SSM, is an Amazon Web Services tools that allows an IT professional to automatically configure virtual servers in a cloud or in on-premises data center, right? So it can do it automatically, correct, with the SSM. I'll give you this link also on the same. How to know which policy is required? See, because you want the code deploy agent on this EC2 instance. So that's why you will need the this particular policy, Amazon EC2 role for AWS code deploy, and you want that to be taken care of automatically here. And then you are deploying the SSM policy here, right? See, administrator access, Sagar Kumar, you had given to that user, CI user, right? Now you want to give this role to your EC2 instance, isn't it? Right? Yeah, so SSM managed instance course is an AWS managed policy, that the policy for Amazon EC2 role to enable AWS Systems Manager service core functionality, okay, that it can do. This is the AWS documentation for the same. See, I mean, then you're not good with the roles concept that you have studied in your IAMC. You are creating the EC2 instance with the root user, okay. But then this EC2 instance wants to communicate with other service, or other service wants to communicate with this EC2 instance like CodeDeploy, correct? So then there is a communication between two services like CodeDeploy and EC2 instance, and you don't want to do it with the help of an IAM user, correct? So then you have to do it with the help of role. So role works on your behalf, so that will make your EC2 instance to communicate with CodeDeploy, isn't it? Right, Ranjit? Yeah. Because at that, see, you're creating this EC2 instance with the root user, but you're not making this EC2 instance to communicate with that code deploy service with the root user, right? That will be done by this EC2 instance with that code deploy automatically. So that will be a communication between two different services like code deploy and the EC2 instance. So communication from two different services can be done with the help of either an IAM user or with the help of roles. So here you are doing it with the role. So you will make that code deploy to deploy to communicate with your EC2 instance, and of course to deploy the code on your EC2 instance. Okay, then there are hundreds of policies up there. How could you distinguish between them, that which one we require? So the name itself suggests, right? So here, like you had given the Amazon EC2 role for AWS CodeDeploy, right? You want the CodeDeploy agent to be installed on your EC2 instance, and that's why you had given that policy, EC2 role for CodeDeploy, right, Dinesh? And anyways, I am going to give you this demo, right? So my CodeDeploy demo, CodePipeline demo, the name of this EC2 instance you have given, and then fine. So then you just go with the application and OS images, that is Amazon machine image. So I can just go with Amazon Linux. Okay. And I can just go with Amazon Linux 2023 or Amazon Linux 2 AMI, whatever good. So let me go with Amazon 2 Linux AMI, correct? And I'll go with T2 Micro, okay, as the instance type. And then in the key pair, you can proceed without a key pair also, or you can create a new key pair, or you can use an existing key pair also. So let's say I will generate a new key pair, my KP 14523, okay. And I'll go with a PPK key pair. What happened? What happened? Okay. Fine. So I just gave that my KP. Okay. And then what? Then in the network settings, I can go with the default network settings, right? So, or otherwise I can just edit this. I can go with the default VPC, correct? And subnet, I can go with no preference, or maybe I can select this VM to be in any of the availability zone in any subnet, or I'll go with no preference. And auto assign public IP, I'll just have it enabled, right? And I'll have in the security group. Now, in the security group, I can give I can use an existing security group or create a new security group. So I can give it, assign any name to my security group or go with the default name. So I'm going with the default name. Now I'll just allow two traffics here, SSH from anywhere and HTTP from anywhere. SSH you can allow from your IP also, or from anywhere, and then I will add another security group rule wherein I will allow HTTP from anywhere. Correct? HTTP from anywhere. Okay. So I'm just allowing two traffics here in the security group rule, HTTP and SSH from anywhere. Okay. And that is good. And then just go down, and storage, you can go with the hard disk as 8 GB of storage for the root volume. That's good. And then in the advanced details, I will choose that role. Correct? Which role I'll choose, guys? So where is that? In IAM instance profile, I'll choose that role, correct? So that I have created. Do you need to choose that role, or do you not need to choose that role? Tell me. Of course you need to. So you will choose that role, EC2 instance role, right? That I had created. And that's it. And then I'll say launch this instance. I don't need to change anything else. I'll just say launch this instance. I'll just quickly go through these steps, what I've done here. Nothing new. So I've given the name, my code pipeline demo, then the application in OS image that I selected Amazon Linux. And I just went with not 2023, but Linux 2, Amazon Linux 2. You can go with any Linux version also, right? And then I went with T2 Micro, selected a key pair, created a new key pair, then went with default VPC, default subnet. Auto assign public IP was enabled. Then in the security group, I just enabled SSH and HTTP traffic from anywhere. Okay, and then gone with the default storage, 8 GB of storage. And then in the advanced details, I just, in the IAM instance profile, I've just given that role name. Okay, and that's it. And then I am going to create this instance, nothing else changed. Yeah, if you're not giving the role right now, you can give it later on as well, right? You can attach the role later on as well to your instance, should not be a problem, right? But we have our role created, so we are attaching it right away. Yeah. So is it clear to all of you? Yes or no? Is it clear till this? Fine. And okay, we did not install what? CodeDeploy agent? No, see, when we install, like when we put the role on our EC2 instance, that role that we had, right? So that itself installs the CodeDeploy agent on your EC2 instance, isn't it? That role itself. So you don't need to install it separately. So see, as a part of the process, create an instance role that allows install and management of the CodeDeploy agent on the instance. So once you have created the role and you have attached it to your EC2 instance, so that allows installation and management of the CodeDeploy agent on the EC2 instance. And that is nothing, CodeDeploy agent is nothing but a software package that enables an instance to be used in the CodeDeploy deployments, right? So we had attached that role, and with that role itself, that allows the installation and management of the CodeDeploy agent on my instance. So I don't have to do it explicitly. Okay, that role will do it for me. Okay, so I have attached that role to my EC2 instance, created and attached that, right? So as good as I've installed the CodeDeploy agent on my EC2 instance, I can say. Okay, is that clear? Yeah. Yes or no? Yeah. Okay, fine. So now, see, now we will create an application in the CodeDeploy, right? So we will go with step number 4, creating an application in the CodeDeploy, right, guys? So see, in CodeDeploy, an application is a resource that contains the software application you want to deploy, right? So an application is nothing but a resource that contains the software application that you want to deploy. Okay, fine. So I'll have an application that is there with my code commit, okay, in the repository. And that is nothing but a resource that contains the software application that you want to deploy on your EC2 instance. So in CodeDeploy, an application is a resource that contains the software application you want to deploy. So later you use this application with CodePipeline to automate deployments of the sample application to your Amazon EC2 instance. And later you will use this application with CodePipeline to automate the deployments of sample application to your Amazon EC2 instance. So that you can automatically deploy the sample application to Amazon EC2 instance. And if there is any change in the code, that will be automatically deployed on your Amazon EC2 instance with the help of CodePipeline. So first you create a role. So again, here also first I'll create a role that allows CodeDeploy to perform the deployments on my EC2 instance. Then you create a CodeDeploy application. Then I'll create a CodeDeploy application, guys, right? Fine. So I'll do that. Okay. So see, in CodeDeploy, as I said, an application is a resource that contains the software application you want to deploy. So later you use this application with CodePipeline to automate deployments of the sample application to your Amazon EC2 instance. So first, guys, you will create a role that allows your CodeDeploy service to perform the deployments. And then you create a CodeDeploy application, correct? So first, let us go and let us create again a role that will allow my CodeDeploy service to perform the deployments on my EC2 instance, to deploy my application on my EC2 instance. Let's create a role so that my CodeDeploy service can get the authority, can get the access to deploy the application onto my EC2 instance. So let's create a role for that. So shall I create that CodeDeploy service role, guys? Shall I create a role for my CodeDeploy so that my CodeDeploy can talk to EC2, can deploy the application onto my EC2 instance? Yes. Shall I go and do that? Yes or no? Tell me. Should I choose EC2 or CodeDeploy? Of course, CodeDeploy, because I want my CodeDeploy to have the access to deploy an application on my EC2 instance. So I'll choose a service that is CodeDeploy. From here, CodeDeploy, I'll select that. So select CodeDeploy and then select CodeDeploy for just CodeDeploy, not for Lambda, not for ECS. If you want to have it on container instances deployment, then you can go for CodeDeploy ECS. Otherwise, CodeDeploy just here, if you want to have it on your EC2 instance. And see, with this particular role, the code, like with some roles, the policy is auto-assigned, right? So like with this role, the AWS CodeDeploy role policy is automatically assigned here, right? So AWS CodeDeploy role manage policy is already attached to this role. You need to go with that, and then you need to go ahead and give the name to this role and create this role. That did what? That installed the CodeDeploy agent on your EC2 instance. Okay, fine. So that installed the CodeDeploy agent on your EC2 instance. Now, this role that you are creating is actually giving your CodeDeploy service the access to your EC2 instance so that it can deploy an application on your EC2 instance. Is it clear? Fine. So that is there. And with this role of CodeDeploy, one policy is auto-assigned to this. Go with that. That is AWS CodeDeploy role policy. It's auto-assigned, and just go with that. Right? This is the manage policy, and then just say next. I don't need to explicitly assign any policy here. I'll just go with that default policy that is auto-assigned. And now here I need to give the name to this role, guys. So you can give any name, or you can use this name. That is CodeDeploy role. Okay. You can give any name. That will not make a difference. Okay. So it allows CodeDeploy to call AWS services such as auto scaling on your behalf. So it will allow AWS CodeDeploy to call my EC2 on my own behalf also, right? On my behalf, that is on the user's behalf as well. That is the auto scaling service also. Please go inside users if those roles are reflecting there. See which user you want to get inside. Like, I mean, see, users are like this user is there. So do you want to go into the user account and see that? See, in this user, it will not come in directly. I mean, if you want to log in into that account, I'm already logged in. And if from that account, if you want to go to IAM, that is of no sense, isn't it? But if you want to go to IAM from this user, well, you can log in with that any user. And if he is having the admin access, not just this user or any other user, if he has the admin access, you'll be able to see that role there, right? EC2 instance role and the other role also, because he's having the admin access, right? Badal Das, I hope that is clear to you. And nothing appears on the application because you have not created an application. So choose create application here, right? So create an application. So choose create application here. Because guys, you will be deploying the code through your code deploy. But for that, first you have to create the application. Let the code come there and then you will deploy it on your EC2 instance. So I'll say create an application. And then in the application name, I can give any name to my application. Let's say I give the name as my demo application, right? I'm just giving the name as my demo application here. And see, in the compute platform, choose a compute platform. So where you want to deploy this application, guys, tell me, what should be the compute platform like? EC2, correct? So go with EC2 / on-premises, okay? And then choose create application, okay? If you want to deploy it on-premises also, again, the same option. And see, there are other options also. AWS Lambda and ECS, if you want to deploy on Lambda or ECS. So then you can say create application. Okay. So application created. Now what? Now you will have to create a deployment group in the application, correct? So I've written it here. So first you create a role that allows CodeDeploy to perform deployments. Then you create a CodeDeploy application. So I've created a role also. Then I've created a CodeDeploy application also. Now the next step is to create a deployment group in CodeDeploy. Now a deployment group is a resource that defines deployment related settings like which instances to deploy to and how fast to deploy them, right? So this deployment group will actually decide, is nothing but a resource that defines the deployment related settings like to which instances we have to deploy the code, because there can be a number of EC2 instances, but you may not want to deploy your code on all the EC2 instances in your account. So to which EC2 instances you want to deploy the code and how fast you want to deploy it to them. Okay, so that is something that you can select with that you can decide with the deployment group, right? So let's do that.
Just a quick info, guys. Intellipaat's DevOps certification course is in collaboration with NASSCOM's Future Skills Prime. With this collaboration, we bring you a DevOps course which is completely aligned to the job market. Intellipaat's DevOps course has been carefully curated by top DevOps experts from around the world and after going through hundreds of jobs description for DevOps jobs. With this course, we have already helped thousands of professionals in successful career transition. You can check out their testimonials on our Intellipaat's Achievers YouTube channel, for which the link is given in the description below. If you're looking for a job in the DevOps field and want to become a NASSCOM certified DevOps professional, do check out the course link mentioned in the description below.
Let's have a quick quiz question, guys. What is AWS CodeBuild? Your options are A. Managed Continuous Integration Service. Option B. A serverless compute service. C. A cloud-based database service. And option D. A content delivery network. Comment your answers in the comment section. Now let's move ahead with the session.
Okay, so I'll say, so once this application has been created, guys, I'll not click on deployments here. Rather, in the down itself, there is something called as deployment group when you have created the application. So just click on create deployment group or create deployment group here. And then, so a deployment group is a resource that defines deployment related settings like which instances to deploy to and how fast to deploy them. Your application, correct? Or the code. So on the page that displays your application, choose deployment group. I've done that. And then I'll enter the deployment group name here. So you can go with EC2 auto scaling group, EC2 instances, on-premise instances. So what I have right now, the only one EC2 instance, not an auto scaling group, not on-premise instance. So I'll go with Amazon EC2 instance, correct? When I want to deploy the code, right? And then in the key name, in the key field, what I'll type name and in the value. So where I want to deploy it, guys, on which EC2 instance. See, with this deployment, deployment group, I can decide on which EC2 instances I want to deploy this particular application or the code. So on my EC2 instance that I created, I want to deploy the code. So what is the name of that? My code pipeline demo, right? That was the name that I had given. And as soon as you click here, you will see that name. If you don't see it, you can type it, right? That name. So the code would be deployed on my EC2 instance, the name I have specified here, right? Okay. If you have on-premises instances, you can choose that, right? Okay. So under the agent configuration with AWS Systems Manager, choose now and schedule updates, right? Okay, so what it asks you that install AWS CodeDeploy agent never or only once, or you say now and scheduled updates. That means it is like it would be installed now and whenever there are any updates. So that also, those updates also would be done by your CodeDeploy agent on your EC2 instance. So you can say only once, or you can say now and scheduled updates, right? So see, complete the required prerequisites before AWS Systems Manager can install the CodeDeploy agent. Make sure that the AWS Systems Manager agent is installed on all instances and attach the required IAM policies to them. So now read out this message and tell me one good thing. Have we already satisfied this requirement? And if so, then when we have achieved it, by which policy have we achieved it? Can you tell me? So see what it says. Complete the required prerequisite before AWS Systems Manager can install the CodeDeploy agent. So this AWS Systems Manager has the capability to install the CodeDeploy agent on your EC2 instance, but that it can do only if you have given that policy, SSM policy in that role. So make sure that the AWS Systems Manager agent is installed on all the instances and attach the required IAM policies to them. So you have installed the agent and also attach the policy, SSM policy to that, right? And then install AWS CodeDeploy agent. I'll say now and schedule updates. So it would be installed now and when the scheduled updates are there. So this installs the agent. So what this will do is, so this will install the agent on the instance. So this installs the agent on the instance. So the Linux instance is already configured with the SSM agent and will now be updated with the CodeDeploy agent, right? So you know one thing, that my Linux instance is already configured with SSM agent, guys, and now will be updated with the CodeDeploy agent now, okay? Okay, so I'll just go with basic scheduler. That's okay, the default settings. And then deployment settings, in deployment configuration, what I'll do is CodeDeploy default all at once, or I'll go with one at a time, or CodeDeploy default half at a time. So what happens with this? Can you tell me? All at once, half at a time, all at once, or one at a time? So it is like how you want to deploy the code on your EC2 instance. If there are multiple EC2 instances, correct? So will it be installed on all the instances at a time, all at once, or half at a time on half EC2 instances at a time, or maybe one at a time, correct? Correct? Fine. So we anyways have just one instance, guys, right? But if we have multiple instances, then we can go with different options, as I told you. So if I have 4 instances, if I say all at a time, so on all the 4 instances, it would be deployed at once. If I say one at a time, so one instance, it would be deployed at once. And if I say half at a time, so out of 4, at 2 instances, it would be deployed at once. Anyways, I just have one instance. I can go with one at a time. So that is also fine. And then in the load balancer thing, so here I don't need to select enable load balancing, right? Because I have not created a load balancer, because I have not created multiple EC2 instances. But guys, if you have 3, 4, 5 multiple instances, so of course you should be balancing the load across those instances through a load balancer, correct? So then you can have a load balancer in picture, right? So here do I need to select this enable load balancing? Does it make any sense? No. So I can just deselect this. Okay. And that's it. And this is not required triggers as such. So if you want to create some trigger or alarms, you can do that. Rollbacks if the deployment is incomplete. So you can roll back as well, but this all is not required. These advanced settings. So you can just create the deployment group, guys, right? So shall I create the deployment group then? Yes. In the step number 4, I did 3 things. Okay. In step number 4, I did 3 things. First, I created a role. Okay. So in CodeDeploy, an application is a resource that contains the software application you want to deploy, right? So later you use this application with CodePipeline to automate deployments of the sample application to your Amazon EC2 instance. So I did 3 things here. First, you create a role that allows CodeDeploy to perform the deployments. So what I did, I went to IAM, I selected, I'll just quickly recap it for you. Okay. So what I did, I went to IAM, and then what I did there, I just created a role there, right? So I said create a role, and then I went with what? I said create role, and then I selected AWS CodeDeploy, AWS service as what? As my CodeDeploy, and then I selected CodeDeploy here. And there was a default policy, inbuilt policy that was there, AWS CodeDeploy. I just went with that. I said next, and I gave my role a name, CodeDeploy role, and then I just created that role. So that was the one thing that I did. And then what I did is, second thing, I created an application in CodeDeploy. So then I went to CodeDeploy. Okay, CodeDeploy. And then I created an application in CodeDeploy. So what I did, I went to applications, and then I said create application. I gave the application a name and compute platform where I want to deploy it. So I said EC2 on premises, and I said create application. And as soon as I created the application, there was an option to deploy the code. Okay, that is code deployment. So I just went with that in the deployments, and then I just deployed my code out there. Okay. So in the deployment configuration, I just specified I said create deployment configuration for that application. I chose the name of that deployment configuration, and then I said the compute platform as EC2 on premises, and then this was not required. And then other settings that came there, I just selected that. Okay. And that's what I just selected that, and I created the code deployment there, right? Code deployment configuration. Is that clear to you? Yeah, in that I specified this thing, that is code deploy one at a time. I said okay, and then I said right. So you had the deployment configurations. Yeah, see, this was my demo application. I went with the deployment group. I created this deployment group. So what I did, I did the deployment group name. Then I entered the service role that I had created. In place deployment, I had said, and then I said environment configuration on my Amazon EC2 instances. I said, okay, I want to deploy it. And then I went with now in scheduled updates, deployment setting. I said one at a time, because I had just one instance. Load balance I didn't go with. That's it. And I created the deployment group, right? So I've shown you these options as well. Fine. So it's there. Okay. Now, guys, what is the next thing? So what is the next step? So, okay, this step number 4, is it clear to everybody of you? Yeah. Is it clear to all of you? Yes. Okay, so now what is the next step? And that is one of the major steps here, right? So now, guys, you are ready to create and run your first pipeline. Okay, fine. So you will create and run your first pipeline. So in this step, you will create a pipeline. So which step I'm going to do now? That is create your first pipeline in CodePipeline, step number 5, right? So I can say that you are now ready to create and run your first pipeline. So in this step, you create a pipeline that runs automatically whenever a code is pushed in your code commit repository. So whenever a code is pushed in the code commit repository, or whenever the code is changed in the code commit repository, this pipeline will auto run, right? So your pipeline is configured to run whenever code changes are made in your code commit repository. So in this step, you make changes to the HTML file that is a part of the sample code deploy application in the code commit repository. And when you push these changes, your pipeline runs again, and the changes you make are visible at the web address you accessed earlier. I will show you that. Okay. So I will first create a pipeline. I'll show you on your Amazon EC2 instance that application would be running, would be deployed. And then I will make some changes in that code in my code commit repository, and I will show you that those changes will be auto run, will be auto deployed onto my EC2 instance, and the changes will be reflected onto my EC2 instance because this pipeline would be there to do it, right? So you use CodePipeline to deploy code maintained in a code commit repository to a single EC2 instance here. So your pipeline is triggered when you push a change to the code commit repository, and the pipeline deploys your changes to an Amazon EC2 instance using CodeDeploy as the deployment service. Okay. So the pipeline deploys your changes to an Amazon EC2 instance using CodeDeploy as the deployment service. So how the pipeline will deploy the changes or will deploy the code to Amazon EC2 instance using CodeDeploy as the deployment service, right? Okay. So the pipeline will have 2 stages: source stage that will be pointing to the code commit repository, source stage that is source for your code commit source action, and deployment stage that is deploy for your code deploy deployment action. Correct? Okay. So that's what we will do, guys. Okay. Yeah. So let's go and do this. Sir, in code deployment, what we need to select? And what I'll do here is I'll say create pipeline. Okay. So just say what? Create pipeline. Okay. And then here you can give your pipeline a name. So I'll just name it as my first pipeline. Correct? You can give this name or a different name, up to you. You can give the name your first pipeline, right? And then in the service role, choose new service role to allow CodePipeline to create a service role in IAM. So see, now whatever the roles that you have created, how many roles have you created anyways till this point in this particular lab? 2 roles, correct? One for the EC2 and one for the code deploy, correct? So whatever you have created the roles that you have attached, one to your EC2 instance, one to your code deploy. But now this service, that is CodePipeline, this also will like to do what? Would like to create a pipeline and would like the code to be deployed on the EC2 instances automatically whenever there is a change in the code commit repository. So also this will need a service role, right? So in the service role, you will choose a new service role to allow the code pipeline to create a service role in IAM, right? Okay, so I'll go with new service role and see the role name. It will auto create AWS Code Pipeline Service Role, US East 1, my first pipeline with this name. So I'll go with this default name, right? Fine. So in the service role, choose new service role to allow CodePipeline to create a service role in IAM, right? And that's it. And see, it is what allows AWS Code Pipeline to create a service role. So it can be used with this new pipeline. Yeah, I'll allow this. Okay. And that's it. And then leave the advanced settings to their defaults, right? Default location, create a default artifact store. So what it will use in intermediary in the artifact. So you can go with the default location. Okay. And the encryption key also default. AWS managed key. So go with these default settings and then you choose next. And now here in the step number 2, you need to add the source stage, right? So guys, which is my source? Who is the source provider? From where the code will come? This is where you stored your input artifacts for your pipeline. So choose the provider and then provide the connection details. So that is AWS CodeCommit, right? So here in the repository, what I'll choose? CodeCommit. Okay, so see, there are different providers, right? You could have your code in CodeCommit, ECR, that is Elastic Container Registry, S3, Bitbucket, GitHub version 1.2, GitHub Enterprise Server. Okay, I'll go with CodeCommit here. And then when I'll, in the repository name, what I'll do is, I'll choose the name of my CodeCommit repository that I had created in my step number 1. So what was that? My demo repo, I think, right? So it will auto come here. Otherwise, you can give it. So my demo repo. And then, of course, the branch was what? It was the master branch, okay, of that CodeCommit repository. Then what? See, it will then give you this option. That is what it will tell you. It will display the message that Amazon CloudWatch events rule to be created for this pipeline. You can go with that. Choose a detection mode to automatically start your pipeline when a change occurs in the source code, right? So Amazon CloudWatch event or AWS code pipeline, right? So change in the code detection, right? So how, see, whenever now, see, the code pipeline has to be triggered at what times, guys? So whenever there is a change in the repository, so this code pipeline should be triggered and then it should auto run and then that new code should be deployed on your EC2 instance with the help of CodeDeploy service, correct? Automatically. So for that, this code pipeline has to be triggered so that it can ask the CodeDeploy to get those changes of code commit onto your EC2 instances automatically, correct? So I mean, this whenever the code in the code commit repository will be changed, so this code pipeline should be triggered, should run automatically, and the changes should be deployed onto your EC2 instances automatically, right? So for that, when the changes will occur, this will run automatically. But guys, how it will come to know that the changes have occurred in your code commit repository? So how it will come to know? So you can just watch out for that using CloudWatch events, correct? So that is a recommended way of doing it. So choose a detection mode to automatically start your pipeline when a change occurs in the source code, right? So Amazon CloudWatch events are recommended. So use Amazon CloudWatch events to automatically start my pipeline when a change occurs, correct? So whenever a change occurs, so then choose Amazon CloudWatch events to automatically start my pipeline whenever change occurs, right? So that CloudWatch can see that changes and then it can make your pipeline run then. Okay. Or you can use AWS Code Pipeline to check periodically for the changes. But guys, it's recommended to go with CloudWatch and that will monitor for the changes. And whenever there is a change in the code, so this pipeline will auto run. Okay. Is that clear? And yeah. So that is there. Yeah, and then you can go with this code pipeline default, right? Artifact format, and then you can just choose next here, right? Now see this build stage. So this is an optional stage. So build means like you want to compile your code or not, right? So anyways, guys, I don't want to compile my code because I don't have anything like I've not written any program or something like that I want to compile in my code. Correct. So I don't have something to be compiled in my code. So I'll not go with a build provider. Anyways, this is a tool. This is the tool of your build project. Provide build artifact details like operating system, build spec file, and output file names if you want to build it, right? So you can make use of AWS CodeBuild to do the compilation, the build, or you can make use of Jenkins as well. But I don't need that, so I'll skip the build stage here, right? And then you can choose the OK to the warning message, right? So your pipeline will not include a build stage. Are you sure you want to skip this stage? So I'll say OK, skip, right? So because in this project, we are deploying the code that requires no build service, so you can skip this step. However, if your source code needs to be built before it is deployed to your instances, then you can configure CodeBuild in this step, or you can go with Jenkins also. Or if you want to use the AWS proprietary, then of course you should go with CodeBuild only, right? Then in the deploy stage, now in the deploy provider, what I should choose? Who is going to deploy it? Which is my deploy provider? Which is my deploy provider, guys? Can you tell me? CodeDeploy, CD, correct, right? So I'll select CodeDeploy. So what I'll select CodeDeploy. See, here it is, right? And as soon as I select CodeDeploy, then comes in the other option region. It is in US East North Virginia. What is the application name like? For my CodeDeploy, which application I have created? My demo application, guys, with the name my demo application. So it appears here. Select that. If it doesn't appear here, you can just give your own name. I mean, not your own name. You can just see that name and give it here. And in the deployment group, so I had created the deployment group also with CodeDeploy. So see, with CodeDeploy, I had created two things. First is the deployment, one is the application, and then the deployment group name, right? So what is the deployment group name that I had created? My demo deployment group. Okay, right, Suresh? So this appears here. If it doesn't appear here, you can go and check and give it here. So my demo deployment group, correct? Is it clear to you guys? Yes or no? So we are coming to the end of this, right? So then choose next. Okay, this step we are coming to the end of it. And then here you can review the settings and then you can choose create, right? So you can just review the settings. I'll just go through it again. So in the pipeline settings, you had given the pipeline name as my first pipeline, correct? Service role, you said, okay, auto create it. And then action provider. So which was the source I had given? CodeCommit. In that the repository I had selected, which I had created my demo repo, master branch name. And then in the build stage, I just skipped that. Okay, so no build. And in the deploy stage, I specified AWS CodeDeploy and then given the application name that I created in CodeDeploy, my demo application, deployment group name as my demo deployment group that I had created there. Right, guys? And then I'll choose create pipeline here, right? So the pipeline will start running after it is created. So it will download the code from your CodeCommit repository and will creates a CodeDeploy deployment to your EC2 instance. Okay, so you can view the progress and success and failure messages at the code deployment sample deploys the web page to your Amazon EC2 instance in the CodeDeploy deployments. Okay, fine. So see, the source is success, right? So it has been able to get the code from CodeCommit repository. So it succeeded. Okay, and then in the deploy stage is in progress. So that code is now being deployed on your EC2 instance, guys. So see, first step done, from source, it is able to fetch the code. And then now it is trying to deploy it on your EC2 instance. And if this succeeds, then you are all good, right? That means the code has been deployed on your EC2 instance. So it is trying to deploy and see it succeeds, right, guys? See, it succeeds. So deployment also succeeded. And like the code fetching from CodeCommit repository has succeeded first, and then it has been deployed on your EC2 instance. So congratulations, guys. You have created a simple pipeline in CodePipeline, right? Now you have to verify the results, right? So what I did here, see the pipeline started running after it created and it downloaded the code from your CodeCommit repository because this step succeeded means it was able to download the code from your CodeCommit repository. And then it created a code deploy deployment to your EC2 instance in step 2, this one, right? Okay. So I saw the progress here and success or failure message were expected. So I got a success message, both green ticks, right? That means the code pipeline sample page has deployed the web page to my Amazon EC2 instance in the code deployment, right? Okay. So fine. So this is all good. So congratulations, you just created a simple pipeline in CodePipeline, and now you can verify the results.
So let us begin with AWS DevOps beginner interview questions. First question, what is AWS in DevOps? Users can readily use DevOps techniques using Amazon's Cloud Service Platform or AWS. The solutions offered will be of great assistance in automating manual activities, enabling teams to manage complex settings, and engineers to operate productively at the high velocity that DevOps offers. Moving on to the second question, DevOps and cloud computing. What is the need? In the DevOps methodology, development and operations are viewed as an unified organism. This means that any type of agile development, when combined with cloud computing, will provide it a clear advantage when scaling techniques and developing plans to modify how adaptable businesses are. DevOps would be the wheels of the cloud if it were a car. Moving to the third question, why use AWS for DevOps? There are numerous benefits of using AWS for DevOps. Some of them are as follows. AWS is a fully functional service that can be used right away without the need for further setup or installation. Second, with AWS, the availability of computational resources is limitless, whether you need one instance or are scaling up to hundreds at once. Third, pay-as-you-go pricing and budgeting with AWS will ensure that you can deploy adequately and receive an equitable return on investment. Fourth, in order to help you develop more quickly and achieve successful results in terms of development, deployment, and testing procedures, AWS pushes DevOps methods closer to automation. Fifth, AWS services are extremely programmable and efficient and may be used with ease via the command line interface, SDKs, and APIs. Moving on to the fourth question, what does a DevOps engineer do? In a hybrid and multifaceted environment, a DevOps engineer is in charge of maintaining an organization's IT infrastructure based on the explicit needs of the software code. A DevOps engineer's primary duties include validation, performance monitoring, and the design of acceptable deployment strategies. Fifth question, how can you handle continuous integration and deployment in AWS DevOps? To help in storing and versioning an application source code, one must use AWS Developer Tools. The application is then automatically built, tested, and deployed to a local environment or to AWS instances using the services. When creating continuous integration and deployment services, it is better to start with CodePipeline and then use CodeBuild and CodeDeploy as necessary. Moving on to the sixth question, why is continuous integration of development and testing necessary? You should emphasize the necessity of continuous integration in your response. My recommendation is to include the following justification in your response. By substituting the conventional approach of doing testing only once all development has been completed, continuous integration of development and testing enhances software quality while speeding up delivery. Due to the fact that developers must integrate code into a shared repository numerous times each day, it enables the dev team to quickly identify and uncover problems, and then each check-in is automatically evaluated. Moving on to the seventh question, what is an AMI? How do we carry it out? Amazon Machine Image is known as AMI. In essence, it is a duplicate of the root file system. It provides the information necessary to start an instance, which is a replica of a cloud-based AMI server. Launching an instance from a variety of AMIs is simple. Third, hardware servers with generic BIOS that precisely point to the disk's first blocks master boot record. It is possible to construct a disk image that can literally fit anywhere on a disk, from which Linux can start at any point on the EBS storage network. The eighth question is, in AWS DevOps, what does AWS CodeBuild mean? The completely managed build service AWS CodeBuild compiles source code, performs tests, and creates software packages that are prepared for deployment. You can provision, maintain, and scale your own build servers using CodeBuild. Your builds won't be kept in a queue because CodeBuild scales continuously and handles several builds at once. Moving on to the ninth question. Describe whether it is possible to distribute a single Memcache instance among several projects. It is feasible to share a single Memcache instance across various projects, yes. You can use one or more servers to execute Memcache, which is a memory storage area. Additionally, you can set up your client to communicate with a certain set of instances. As a result, two separate Memcache processes can run on the same host and remain totally independent. Unless your data has been partitioned, it is important to know which instance to obtain the data from or put it into. 10th question. Why AWS DevOps matters? The world and its sectors from retail to entertainment to finance have been completely altered by software and the internet. Software now plays a crucial role in every aspect of a business, going beyond simply providing assistance. Through software supplied as online services or applications and on a variety of devices, businesses communicate with their customers. Additionally, they employ software to transform every step of the value chain, including logistics, communications, and operations, in order to improve operational efficiencies. Companies now must change how they produce and distribute software in a similar way to how physical goods companies changed how they design, build, and deliver things utilizing industrial automation throughout the 20th century. Let us move on to AWS DevOps intermediate interview questions. Starting with the first one, what programming frameworks work with AWS CodeBuild? Python, Ruby, Java, Android, Docker, Node.js, and Go are environments that are already created and available through AWS CodeBuild. The initialization and creation of a Docker image can also be used to create a customized environment. Then, this is uploaded to either the Doc Hub registry or the EC2 registry. Later, the image is referred to using this in the user's build project. Second question, what do AWS DevOps microservices entail? The design strategies used when creating a single application as a collection of services are known as a microservice architecture. These services each have their own unique process architecture and can connect with one another using a structured interface that is both light and user-friendly. The majority of this communication is done through HTTP and API requests. Moving on to the third question, what does EBS in AWS DevOps mean? Elastic Block Storage, sometimes known as EBS, is an AWS virtual storage area network. The block-level storage volumes used in the EC2 instances are referred to by the term EBS. AWS EBS is a dependable method of storing data and is very interoperable with other instances. Moving on to the fourth question, what is the main benefit of using an AWS DevOps model? Every organization can benefit from keeping high process efficiency and making sure to keep expenses as low as feasible. AWS DevOps makes it simple to accomplish this. It can only be beneficial in everything from getting a fast overview of how the workplace culture operates to promoting teamwork. An organized pipeline, collaboration between development and operations, and access to a range of tools and services will all improve the quality of the final product and improve customer service. Fifth question, can Jenkins and AWS CodeBuild be used together in AWS DevOps? Yes, AWS CodeBuild is simple to link with Jenkins so that tasks may be carried out and run in Jenkins. The process of setting up and individually controlling the worker nodes in Jenkins is completely eliminated when build jobs are submitted to CodeBuild and executed there. Sixth question, what is the difference between scalability and elasticity? Scalability refers to a system's capacity to expand its hardware resources in response to a rise in demand. It can be accomplished by raising the hardware requirements or by adding more processing nodes. Elasticity is the capacity of a system to cope with an increase in workload by adding more hardware resources as the demand rises, but also rolling back the scale resources when the resources are no longer required. In cloud situations where a pay-per-use approach is used, this is especially useful. Moving on to the seventh question. How is Amazon RDS, DynamoDB, and Redshift different? For relational databases, Amazon RDS is a database management service that handles patching, upgrading, data backups, etc. The RDS Database Administration Service only handles the structured data. Contrarily, DynamoDB is a NoSQL database service which works with unstructured data, whereas Redshift is a completely different service that is used for data analysis and is a product of a data warehouse. Eighth question. What is AWS Lambda in AWS DevOps? You can run code with AWS Lambda without setting up or managing servers. You may use Lambda to run the code for almost any kind of application or backend service with no administration required. Simply upload your code and Lambda will handle all the necessary steps to run and grow it with high availability. Moving on to the ninth question. Explain the function of an Amazon EC2 instance like stopping, starting, and terminating. When an instance is stopped, it goes through a typical shutdown and enters a pause state. Instance can be stopped and restarted. The instance can be restarted later and still have all of its Amazon EBS volumes attached. While the instance is paused, you're not billed for extra instance hours. When an instance is terminated, it shutdowns normally and deletes any attached Amazon EBS volumes until the delete on termination attribute of the volume is set to false. Additionally, deleted is the instance itself. You cannot restart the instance at a later time. I hope it will be really beneficial to understanding and passing the interview. 10th question. What is the importance of buffer in Amazon Web Services? A buffer will synchronize various paths and increase the arrangement's adaptability to a spike in traffic or load. The paths are prone to receiving and processing requests in an erratic manner. The buffer establishes the equilibrium between various apparatus and crafts their work so that they move at the same pace to provide services more quickly. Moving on to AWS DevOps advanced interview questions. Let us take a look at the first one. What problems might you run across when building a DevOps pipeline? In this age of technical eruption, DevOps faces a variety of difficulties. It typically has started to deal with data migration strategies and quickly introducing new features. If data migration fails, the system may be in an unstable state, which may result in problems later on. However, a feature flag, which aids in the incremental product releases, is the only way to resolve issues within the CI system. This can aid in reducing some of the difficulties along with the rollback feature. Second question. How does CloudFormation vary from AWS Elastic Beanstalk? EBS and CloudFormation are two of AWS's key services. They are created in a way that makes working together amongst them simple. EBS offers a setting in which cloud-deployed programs can be installed. To manage the lifecycle of the apps, this is connected with CloudFormation's tools. With this, using a variety of AWS resources becomes incredibly convenient. As a result, it may be used for a wide range of applications, including container-based solutions and traditional applications. Moving on to the third question. How is using version control advantageous? Version control has many advantages as illustrated below. First, version control creates a simple method for comparing files, spotting differences, and merging. It makes it simple to trace every stage of the life cycle of an application build, including development, production, testing, etc. Third, it offers a practical means of establishing a cooperative workplace culture. And finally, every version and variation of the code are kept safe and secure thanks to version control. Let us look at the fourth question. What are the upcoming AWS DevOps trends? The purpose of this question is to gauge your knowledge of the topic and the depth of your research. To strengthen your candidature, be sure to provide true facts and cite appropriate sources. Additionally, attempt to describe how modern software techniques and cloud computing are having a significant impact on firms worldwide and their potential for future rapid growth. Fifth question. Discuss your experience building bridges between IT ops, QA, and development. Effective communication and teamwork are crucial to DevOps. By skillfully straddling the two worlds, I have been able to handle production related challenges from both the development and operation sides. I am more concerned with making sure that all of the moving elements work together than I am in assigning blame or taking the lead. Sixth question: what are microservices and why they have an impact on operations? Microservices are a result of programming conventions and software design. Operations is in charge of routinely distributing and managing the smaller, more numerous artifacts that microservice architectures often produce. Microservices have a significant impact on operations because of this. Microdeployments is the phrase used to describe the duties associated with delivering microservices. Therefore, bridging the gap between microservices and microdeployments is what DevOps is actually about. Moving on to the seventh question: explain how DevOps is helpful to developers. With DevOps, release cycles are quicker and more frequent, enabling developers to swiftly discover and fix problems as well as add new features. Second, when developers and operations work together, they will produce software that is simpler to use, more dependable, and ultimately better for the company, since DevOps is what motivates employees to perform better work by giving them additional hats to wear. Eighth question: what is the AWS Developer Tools? The AWS Developer Tools are a collection of services created to help DevOps practitioners and IT operations specialists produce software quickly and securely. Together, these services enable you to automatically create, test, and deploy your application to AWS or your on-premises environment while securely storing and version controlling the source code of your application. You can integrate each service separately with your current tools or use AWS CodePipeline to orchestrate an end-to-end software release workflow using these services and third-party tools. Moving on to the ninth question: how to adopt an AWS DevOps model. Changes in culture and mindset are necessary to make the transition to DevOps. DevOps is essentially about breaking down boundaries between development and operations, two historically separate teams. Second, even without separate development and operations teams, engineers may do both tasks in some businesses. By collaborating on DevOps, the two teams can increase both the efficiency of developers and the dependability of operations. They make an effort to communicate regularly, boost productivity, and raise the caliber of the services they offer to consumers. By considering the demands of the final customer and how they might help to address those needs, they assume full responsibility for their services, frequently going above and beyond the scope of their declared duties or titles in the past. Finally, teams for quality control and security may also become closely incorporated with these teams. Regardless of their organizational structure, organizations implementing a DevOps model have teams that see the full development and infrastructure lifecycle as a part of their duty. Coming to the final question, explain what is dogpile effect. How can you prevent this effect? So the term dogpile effect refers to the situation in which websites are attacked by numerous concurrent client requests as a result of the cache expiring. A semaphore lock can be used to stop this effect. When a value in this system runs out, the first process buys the lock and begins producing fresh value.
Just a quick info guys, Intellipaat offers an AWS DevOps certification course. With this program, you'll get trained in AWS services, CI/CD pipelines, infrastructure as code, containerization with Docker and Kubernetes, monitoring with CloudWatch, and much more, all through real-world projects and case studies. The course is taught by certified trainers and industry leaders who guide you with hands-on labs and practical assignments, ensuring you're fully job ready. With this program, Intellipaat has already